say, he thinks he's busy now, wait till retirement.
Oh, yeah.
He'll need
well,
this
I
too.
know.
I'm sure it's gonna suck.
Oh, that was, I'm sorry, I'm trying to give you a sign.
Yeah. It's not that big.
Didn't even bring it.
Good, how are you?
I'm on the struggle bus tonight.
Well, I've been busy all day, but
So how's everything
we're
going
done
with you?
scheduled. So far.
Cannot
So far.
complain, but yeah,
Coffee's
been
not
busy.
till 10:15, so it should be
Last 3
good.
days, just,
How did I get all this done?
yes.
Alright, screen looks good.
All right. Well, this is Natalie, this bus was good.
Yes. Okay.
But I didn't realize that it's okay. You did something. Let me write that down.
Very good. Personally.
I'm missing one of these, I got 2 of them.
I haven't gone through mine, so.
Are you missing one?
I haven't seen two as
I
well.
printed my own. So if somebody needs an extra copy,
Oh, I think one is,
must have been some revisions since.
one is rezoning and one is site plan.
So I emailed out, there were two additional documents, just reviewing the packets. Your hard copies should be
Yep.
accurate.
Oh, you put them in there,
Yes,
but you didn't update online?
correct.
I understood, all right. Our planning consultant should be here in 1 or 2 minutes, so we'll start that.
Come on. Someone need that, but you know.
There's Mario.
Okay.
Good, good.
Oh, scared. It's all right.
Yeah, we're just gonna wait another minute or so for Mario. That should be Mario. Mario? No problem. Jared just got here, but we will start. It's after 6. We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. I have no changes. Any?
I move to approve the agenda as published.
My second.
Motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes from March 18th, 2026 Planning Commission special meeting.
Move to approve that.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the March 18th, 2026 Planning Commission special meeting minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Call to the public. Hearing none. Move to new business, item 1, LR rezoning and site plan review. So for this one, I guess I would like the applicant or representative to maybe do a brief summary of the whole project, since this is the first time in front of the Planning Commission. And then we will go to Mario for review his, yeah, you can come up here. I don't see the microphone, but we can hear you fine. And then Mario can do his review, and then we'll have other discussions, Planning Commission discussions. So, okay, go ahead.
My name's Tony Aller. I've lived in Tyrone Township 56 years. So I moved here with my parents from Royal Oak in 1970. So I'm a longtime resident. I've developed 3 subdivisions in the area, Top of the Pines, Applewood Estates, and Foley Crossing. Those were some years ago. I've always kind of had my eye on that piece of property that we're talking about tonight, and it came up for sale, and it was up for sale for a while, and I kind of picked at it a little bit and ended up buying it in January. It's a beautiful piece of property. I don't really want to see an asphalt plant there. I really don't want to see a solar entity there. So I thought that driving up and down, I've driven up and down 23 probably 10,000 times in my life, and it just seems like everything's getting filled in, and that's kind of a natural piece right there off the highway for industrial. So I bought it. I've been working with Kevin Johnson, Rhodes and Johnson, and his engineers and architects, and we came up with this layout. I don't have a tenant for the building, Right now, it's a speculative concept, and once we get a little further along here, I'm going to sign up with a national real estate company and get them to market it. I might build it as a spec, I might build it as a tenant. You know, if we can find a tenant to lease it, and I'll build it if we get that, and or we'll just sell it as a build-to-suit. So that's kind of where we're at right now with it.
All right, I guess a few questions I had. So did you buy all the way up to Hogan Road?
I did.
Is that 2 parcels?
2 parcels.
Okay, so this one, this application for currently is for this southern one.
Correct.
And that, I think we asked some questions and they come back with maybe like a future expansion concept. Is there any other, I mean, is that the plan, is like expand similar to what this site plan is?
It depends on what the market brings,
Okay.
yes. Right now, we're looking at 4 different parcels that probably will be developed in a site condominium.
Okay.
So we can have some flexibility. If I get a big user that comes in, you know, he may need 20 acres, so we can consider that one lot. Or this 50,000 may not go anywhere, and I may have to come back and say, I want to put in, you know, 20,000 square foot units, which would make the parcels smaller. We'd have to divide them up a little bit smaller.
So the intent of this is for you to develop this property and then sell it to these potential users?
I would like to own this
You're
building.
going to own the whole thing?
Yes.
And then rent it out?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
So I could sell land, build buildings and lease, or build to suit.
Okay.
I'm fairly flexible.
All right, and that's, all that we've discussed is this parcel at the south end?
Correct.
And I got some comments on the rezoning plans, but is there any plans for the north property that you want to share now? Not tied to this at all?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that was a good overview. I think if we could go to Mario for his report.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You do have my review letter based on the first request of the applicant, which is to rezone the property. And so, just to summarize for everyone and for those that may be watching, this piece of property is located on the west side of North Old 23 and north of Center Road. It is right now 1 tax parcel totaling approximately 44.4 acres. The site is occupied by woodlands in the northwest portion of the site, and then in that northwest corner of that is a 1.9 acre wetland. The remainder of the site has been utilized for agricultural farmland. But however, we also note that there's a 105-foot wide natural gas main easement that runs diagonally through the center of the site. As a request for rezoning, I'm just going to summarize some of the key points of my review letter. Our review letter typically indicates the existing land uses of the site and adjacent to the site, also the zoning of those pieces of property and future land use designations of all those properties. And then the Planning Commission has several criteria to consider whenever a property is asked to be rezoned that's listed in the zoning ordinance. So once again, I'm just going to highlight some of my observations based on those required criteria to review, beginning with number 1 on page 3, the consistency with the township master plan. The master plan designates this property as planned industrial, and the adjacent property to the south and west is also designated as planned industrial. While so on its face, by requesting this property to be rezoned to industrial, it would be consistent with our master plan. We look at the site compatibility characteristics, whether this particular, the physical characteristics and the environmental features of the site would be compatible with the uses that are in and permitted or require special land use in the industrial zoning district. The site is, as I just mentioned, in terms of their existing conditions, has mainly farmland, some woodlands. It's also gently sloping, and it does undulate up and down occasionally. But the majority of the site, we do believe, would lend itself to easily construct buildings for industrial uses. does appear that, so there's not a lot of significant other natural features on the majority of the site that would prevent these features, because the proposed use, the proposed district of M1 is our light manufacturing, so the majority of the uses permitted in that district are for for inside buildings. There's very limited opportunities for outdoor storage or outdoor activities, so therefore, by an industrial user, so therefore the site would be basically involving construction of buildings for industrial users. Looking also at compatibility of these proposed uses with the surrounding uses, you know, I've indicated the existing uses in the area, and also the fact that also the table also illustrates what type of the zoning and the existing and the future land use designation of those are. So this proposed site is actually is adjacent to land used or zoned already for industrial on the west and on the south. The property to the north, while currently agricultural, is planned for medium density residential. So while if this was rezoned, the uses would be consistent and compatible and with the properties on the west and the south. To the north, it would be potential for residential development. However, our zoning ordinance anticipates this. We do have extensive landscape buffering requirements for those locations in which an industrial user might be adjacent to residential. So we do believe that the uses that are allowed in the M1 light industrial or light manufacturing district could be designed to be compatible with the adjacent existing and planned uses, both to the south, west, but also to the north. Then also taking a look, just want to highlight any issues about infrastructure impacts. Once again, this is light industrial district. There's other uses within the M1 that would need to be evaluated during a site plan review process. And so if there's any need for them to require significant utility upgrades or improvements, those could be taken care of during the site plan review process for that particular user. The site is, there is an existing pressurized sewer main along the old US 23 property line, so they do have direct access to that. But once again, any other additional utilities that would have to be designed during the site plan review process to ensure their compatibility. One other actual benefit of the site is that it's in close proximity to US 23. So there would be minimal truck traffic generated on other adjacent township roads if it's going to serve other regional uses by whatever activity is going on the property. So that's a summary of just some of the considerations for rezoning the site. We do believe that the proposed rezoning would result in additional industrial opportunities in the township, and it's in a location that is both convenient for new users and contributes to the development pattern envisioned by the master plan. So we would advise the Planning Commission to recommend approval of the rezoning to the Township Board based on consistency with the Township Master Plan, compatibility of the site with the uses permitted in the M1 district, compatibility of the uses with the existing adjacent land uses, and the minimal impact on infrastructure. I can take any questions about the rezoning at an appropriate time, or we can, whenever you prefer.
I guess it's all one application, but maybe we can talk about the rezoning application first and get comments from the Planning Commission on that. One comment I have, which kind of threw me off a little bit, but you confirmed it, like on the site, on the rezoning site plan, you know, like here it shows, you know, the owner, which I believe to be the old owner, and this adjacent, I don't know if you can see my screen, but the
That's the old owner.
the north property. But then on the proposed site, on the proposed plan sheet, it does show existing farm residential proposed light manufacturing. And that suggests that it's on the north too. So maybe that's just, yeah, you could, you're the engineer.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm the engineer, my name is Chris Brzezinski, I work for Brick Squatter, and I don't believe, Tony, that we had a discussion about that. It was my understanding when I was talking with Kevin that this may be the whole thing.
No.
So,
That was.
that was an erroneous,
No.
that was an erroneous thing that I put on that.
Yeah, big implications, but small change, so, once again, that would just, you can just change that to
Absolutely.
existing as,
Yep.
same as, proposed same as existing. Other than that, and I'm going off, when I made these comments, that was on the, I believe like February version, so, yeah. I don't, oh, I just said here that the owner, Tony Aller, on the title sheet, but another sheet it showed someone else. And I think it was just that previous owner, not a big deal.
For that parcel of land is what you're talking about.
Yeah, right here,
Yep.
owner, different than the title sheet, but owner's changed, so it's probably not a big deal. This is more applicable to me, the site plan, but, you know, I just said, you know, that 100-foot wide gas easement, that's a pretty big deal. And just one line with a G on it is kind of downplaying a little, you know, it brings it out if it says, you know, whatever it is, 20-inch high pressure or something, then people really look at that, you know. But that's more when you get into the construction plans and stuff. That's all the comments I had on the rezoning in general, and I'll just share my feelings, but everyone, I encourage everyone else to share theirs. I agree, I think this is a very good idea. You know, I'm sure there's probably some details to work out, but, you know, there's very limited industrial land use that we have set aside in the master plan, in the future land use map, and this is one of the main parcels that has not been developed, and in my opinion, it, you know, appears to be a good use of that industrial land. Any other comments on the rezoning from the planning commission?
And it beats asphalt plant, and he's been around here long enough to keep things harmonious with the area. I mean, he's done well with other projects, so I don't see any issue with it.
I just have a couple of questions. So you've still got a lot of frontage here that is very attractive. Are you thinking like a campus? Are you thinking individual and going forward?
I think it lends itself to individual driveways, individual parcels. Putting a road in, I don't know, unless I split it up into a lot of smaller parcels, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we have storm water retention issues, not issues, but we have to account for that. So that takes up land. So I don't know that I can gain anything by putting a road into these two. And I can't put a road across the gas
Okay.
line. I checked with consumer, and they don't want,
You can't even put a parking, you can't.
no,
No,
they
I'm,
don't want anything on it, which I get.
And you knew that going into it, right?
Yes, I did,
It's
yes.
a legal document, they got the numbers in there.
And I thought that we could work around that. I mean, there's gas lines everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, that's a very important one, right?
Yes.
I don't know the size and the pressures, but my understanding is it's,
Well, it continues through next to a lot of people that, you know, would rather not have it near them, but I mean, they're everywhere. So my thought was having industrial buildings next to an industrial gas line makes a heck of a lot more sense than you know, a shopping center or residential homes.
yep,
And we're next door to an industrial building right now, so.
yep. Now, on that same note, which I think is kind of more along the lines of the site plan review rather than the rezoning, but it's all tied together. I guess I had kind of not the same concern, but just kind of question, like, the overall plan does kind of lead to some of the design with the roads in the driveway entrance, with the clarification on that you can't cross the easement helps. But I just, from what I see, and I know someone, I'm not sure who had comments about, traffic in like a left turn lane or something. And there's a lot of parking spots. We don't know what kind of use it is or how many workers would be in there.
Right.
Or if it's like shift change, you got a lot of people coming and going at once. But if you had multiple of those with multiple driveways, it could make things complicated that could be easily solved with more of a one driveway entrance and then you go to the different buildings. But I understand, that you can't build there on top of that, so. Something to think about in the future build out, because, we haven't gone down there yet, but like, what kind of traffic impact is this gonna have? And this is just the one building that we're looking at now, but the whole future, if the infrastructure you're building now should accommodate the future,
Right.
say, traffic.
Should we look more into the future and see what that looks like? I can do that.
I mean, it's a thought. I mean, I think once we get into the site plan review, we'll want to discuss more that traffic impact.
Mr.
But I
Chairman.
think it's sticking to the rezoning, that's kind of more on the site plan side. Go ahead, Mario.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to point out something. While we'll be looking at the site plan and the applicant has presented something, as a standard rezoning, just keep in mind that if the rezoning is approved, then the property owner would have all the right to do any use that's within the zoning district on the site. Well, they are presenting this, and they could, when it comes to site plan, they could move forward. The market might indicate, or they might choose to move another route. So the question before you has to make sure that you're considering both the potential for the site to eventually be developed with any use that's permitted in the districts as listed currently, which is, like I mentioned, this is still light industrial, so it is majority is intended to be internal operations of various various industrial users. But, that varies from, we have listed building trades in addition to warehousing, laundry service, transportation facilities, industrial plants for different types of production, furniture, pharmaceuticals, that sort of thing. But then also lumber sales, propane sales. But then also under the special land use, there's communication improvements, care facilities, mixing plants is listed as a special land use within the M1 district. Outside storage, once again, it's not permitted by right, but if a user comes in that would like to have outside storage, they could request it through the special use process. And then, so I just wanted to point that out, because that's the question before you.
Very good point. So we're looking at this site plan, but this is essentially irrelevant for the rezoning. It's more of looking at the, your original, just changing it to match the future land use map.
Correct.
But question on that, isn't there a way to do it where it's tied to the rezoning is only approved if you tie it to the application? I don't know.
So the only way you can, this is a request for a standard rezoning, so there really is no way under a standard rezoning to do that, because the zoning district, once it's granted, is a right of the landowner. So the landowner gets everything in that particular district. However, there is technically the other alternative, which is a conditional rezoning, but this is something in which the applicant has to make the presentation. It's not a negotiated situation, because technically the state law specifically says you can't be, negotiating with the applicant in that case. But the applicant could submit a conditional rezoning and say, I'm only going to be utilizing this for these particular land uses. And then those would be the only ones that could be developed on the site. But that's totally something that is only can be brought forth by the applicant if they wanted to.
Understood. But we also got to remember that that's just what the zoning is, which matches our future land use.
Correct.
We chose this property to be industrial. in the future.
That's right.
And so, if that came about and an industrial park was not what was decided, we still got the site plan review and special land use for most of them. There's a couple, what'd you say, a couple that don't require are permitted uses.
Correct.
But most of the, I would say, intense uses are special land use, so
Right.
we still have control there.
And even with, yes, absolutely, and even with that, we do believe that based on the requirements within the zoning ordinance for any of those uses, the intent of them existing is to make sure that any use that's within this district can be designed and constructed to be compatible with the adjacent property. And so that's why my evaluation and conclusion is that it would be appropriate to rezone, because we do have the tools available to you to make sure that any particular use at least would, based on the listed requirements, has the potential to be appropriate for the location.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think, we did a good job on the master plan, and we chose this property and chose the adjacent property to the north as a medium-density residential, which I think, in my opinion, is like the highest we want to go in the township as much as possible. So, you got that buffer to other residentials. It was kind of how we developed the master plan, this future land use map, and this is going right towards it. So I have no concerns with this. Any other thoughts on that, I guess, overall rezoning, not thinking about the industrial park? All right, so I guess maybe this is for Ross. Can you just remind us the overall process that we're looking at for both the rezoning and the site plan?
Yep, so for the rezoning, that is going to be standard processes. We'll have the introduction meeting. Basically, if there's anything that needs to be corrected, changed, added, whatever, you can provide that input to the applicant at this time. When the planning commission feels that it's ready, we can schedule a public hearing that is going to be required for the rezoning aspect of it. That's going to be the biggest part, I think, before you can actually go ahead with any type of recommendation to the board. The site plan review aspect, we are looking at that concurrently, but that is not something that is going to be part of the public hearing because it is not a special land use, it's just standard site plan review.
But it's not a special land use?
No,
Warehousing is permitted by right in the district.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
So, it's nice to have the full picture, to look at everything concurrently, but as far as the next steps go, if you guys feel that you're comfortable, then we could potentially work on scheduling that public hearing for the rezoning aspect, bring that forward at a future meeting, and
Remind me again, we do not need a public hearing for the site plan review?
correct. Yep, we can do them at the same meeting, we can make the recommendations during the same meeting.
Well, I feel like, just my opinion, that we're feeling pretty good on the zoning, and we're gonna look at the site plan next, so
Yep.
I don't know where we're at there, but.
Yeah, site plan, like I said, you could, per the ordinance, you could make a decision on that at any time because a public hearing is not required. But, that's your discretion. If you
Yeah, I
want
think,
any changes, anything that you'd like to see different before you make a motion on that, then this meeting would be the time to discuss that, and then they can bring that back.
Can I make a comment about the site
yeah,
plan?
yep,
Because the site plan it's a concept.
yep,
I don't have a tenant. I'm not willing to build it and put a business in it myself. So the market's gonna kind of tell us what somebody wants to do. Do they want 50,000 square feet? Do they want 100,000 square feet? Do they want 150,000 square feet? And to get site plan review for this and then go out and market this building and it comes back and it's completely different, then we've kind of wasted our time. Maybe the thing is to put the site plan on the shelf for right now after we get the rezoning. The rezoning is key. I can't go out and market it and try to sell it to somebody and they put a bunch of time into it and
we deny it.
we deny it.
Yep.
But with the site plan, I just assume keep you guys front and center with the site plan, because I consider this a partnership. I live here, I don't want to put a piece of, a bunch of junk across the street. So if we get somebody that wants to build something, they're gonna want to build something that fits them. That way we can steer the site into what we want here in Tyrone Township. Does that make sense, or?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think you putting this concept site plan together and sharing your vision and plan for this really helps with the rezoning. So I think it was good there, and I think it was developed enough where we can kind of review it and share our feedback now. Maybe this is our concern here, this driveway or this landscaping or whatever, and then you can think about that as you, for the future developments or.
New site plan.
Yeah, but I'm just throwing it out there, if we're all good on the rezoning, we can schedule that public hearing and, move forward with that one, give you feedback on the site plan that you have now, and then you do what you want with it. If you want to put it on hold, put it on hold. If you want to come back, you bring it back.
Okay.
Now, what I'm going to ask Ross is, what is the process to change your site plan? Say you have 50,000 square foot, but your client wants 60, and you just explain to him that change,
Yeah.
because some are small, some are large.
Correct. So if you were to go through and do both of them at this time, you could get the rezoning done, get that recommended to the township board. It's at your discretion whether or not you want to move forward with the site plan, but if you were to theoretically say, yes, I want to proceed with this, that could potentially be approved. You find out at a later date that there may need to be some changes depending on whatever user you're able to find. It would just need to come back as an approved site plan, which is a much lesser process. It's not starting from square one.
Okay.
You can make tweaks, you can make changes. There's a little bit of a difference. There's criteria for determining if it's considered a major change or a minor change.
Right.
But as a permitted use in the district, just subject to site plan review, either way that it's done.
And that's approved by the planning commission, correct?
If it is minor, then it will be
Okay.
by the planning commission. If it's major, then it'll just be a recommendation by the
Right.
planning commission to the board.
Okay.
So, yeah, you have options there.
Okay.
Isn't there a time limit on how long you can hold a site plan for?
1 year.
1 year? Okay. Just want to make sure you're aware.
Okay.
So, because some of these comments I have in the site plan document are, minimal, like invert elevations, like, do you want to spend the time on really getting out into those details? And then, is this one or two, this is preliminary and then final, right?
This is the whole thing for the site plan review, yeah.
Okay, but, so you would gotta, say we approved it, then you would gotta go get the final approvals from the county and all the different entities, right?
Right.
Now, that's more of a process than,
Right.
then you gotta go do all that again if you change it, for example.
Right.
Or you may have to, depending on what the change is, I guess, but, so that, I think that's really up to you on how far you wanna take the site plan. But I would at least, since we've seen it and we're all here right now, I would like to at least give you our feedback.
Yeah,
now.
I'd like to hear that.
And then when you come back for the rezoning, special public hearing, we could continue that conversation in more feedback.
Okay.
But it's up to you how far you want to go if it's.
I'd like to hear the comments and work through some of the details. Because
Yeah,
I think
so.
I think it's a good-looking building, it fits. Is it what the market wants? That's the biggest
Yeah.
question right now.
All right, so as far as the zoning, is everyone good to schedule the public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and schedule that. Ross, do you want just next available, or what do you?
How many days is it or a period? Time
Yes,
period?
yep, so we do need to have everything published 15 days prior to the public hearing taking place. So for the next regular meeting, it's not quite going to meet that deadline. However, there is potentially an option that we could convert our second meeting of the month to a regular meeting and hold a public hearing at that time.
What date is that?
That one is going to be, do you have it at the calendar?
I'll pull it up here. That would be the
May
4th.
20th,
Okay,
third Wednesday, correct?
third Wednesday.
May 20th.
I'm gonna be
Wait, isn't it the 4th now?
It's supposed to be the 4th.
Yeah,
It is the 4th.
yeah,
It'll
because-
show up on the calendar.
Oh, now it's the 4th.
Yeah, we,
If If you just go to the homepage, the calendar's gonna be on the bottom.
All right, stand by.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
We got us our regular meetings. My internet's not working fast today. Kevin, can you check that?
I'll see if
The website just to see?
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
should
think it was
be
on the
1 month
27th.
from then. It should be the,
I think it's the 27th.
it's actually the third Wednesday after the second Tuesday or something like that. It's not just the fourth, because this would have been the fifth. So it's at the end of the next month. So that one is typically our workshop. And so we would, it's not a request, go ahead.
I'm gonna be on a family vacation 20th to the 27th in May, so.
Yeah, 27th would be the meeting. So if you want to just wait to the June regular meeting,
How about that?
27th will be the workshop.
27th would be the workshop. You're unavailable.
Could you
So,
do the 12th?
well, no, I think he's
No.
saying, no, I think he's saying June 9th would be the next
June
regular
9th is gonna
meeting.
be the next
It's already scheduled regular meeting. We wouldn't
Yeah.
have to change our workshop.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
All right, does that work for you, Ross?
Yep.
All right.
Plenty of time.
Sounds good. So let's, go ahead there. We'll move to, same item, I guess, but to the site plan, review. And on that, unless you wanted to give any input on your specific site plan, which I think you already shared, Mario, you could go through your review of that.
Yes. So knowing the potential for, that this is more of a speculative site plan, we might offer some additional comments, but basically, when it comes to the site plan review process, once again, there's a lot of, the plan could be approved with some contingencies, and those are usually reflective of outside reviews and approvals. So if for example, if you did want to move forward with the site plan at the meeting with the public hearing, and at that public hearing, the planning commission did recommend approval of the rezoning to the township board, then when the site plan question comes up, their approval, one thing I would say is I would recommend that any approval of the, recommended approval of the site plan by the planning commission should be contingent on the rezoning, also contingent on, the road agency that has access, which I believe in this case would be MDOT for old
No,
US. Oh,
that's Livingston County Road.
oh, it is Livingston County? Old US 23, I think?
Not right of way that kind of extends.
Yeah, I think it's
I
like
think it's
covers.
MDOT
I mean, it
right
is-
away,
But-
but I think the county owns the road, but that'd
Okay.
be something to look into.
But that would be, but then the instant, in that instance, it's,
It's road commission, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think
So
that whole
then-
thing is that considered MDOT right away, or do they have separate?
absolutely, it's MDOT right away.
But it's road commission road.
Controls, that.
service drive,
Yeah.
okay. So any recommended approval would be the road authority having approval over the road. So those, a lot of my comments are regards to that because there are other sites. But then getting into some of the zoning related comments with regards to parking, the building as proposed on the original site plan that was submitted, it has a minimum required total of actually 44 parking spaces. Applicant is proposing 83 in that particular configuration. The planning commission, you might want to ask the applicant why there might be a need for that much, given it's a warehousing use. The options for that, if you were to build it, also too, could be to land bank some of those extra parking spaces. So at a minimum, though, you would have to provide 44 with the proposed use being warehouse and the proposed configuration. But you have the alternative to do land banking for that.
No, Mario, for the record, there was another option that came through last
Right.
couple days with that.
So there is another option that came through after that, which does also lend itself to the idea of that, yes, this could be part of a phased approach to the development of the site overall, which does make sense. And then it's up to the applicant in that particular configuration. One aspect of that, in terms of site lot configuration, and that road being directly adjacent to, or the access drive being directly adjacent to the gas easement, You might want to have the potential of basically flipping that and then having the access road on the north side of the proposed building, so that one access point off of, could function both on the north and south side. So it potentially could have 4 users or however many. But, yeah, given the fact that, given the fact you will not be able to cross the road easement, if you just had that a little bit further up, because there's about another 500 feet between the proposed improvements on the site and the northern property line.
Yeah, I do like that idea, because that way, you got the easement right in the middle, kind of divides the
Yeah.
parcel in two. And once again, it'd be nice if it was just one entrance and it went to the industrial park, but you can't. Now you'd have 2 entrances.
Right.
And it would go, not that you couldn't loop around, but,
Put one in and then they take the drives separate.
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
for each side. So
Yeah.
if you develop this entire site, you'd have one in the
One there and
middle,
then
one
one on
in
the
the
other
middle
side.
of over there. And it gives them a little space further apart.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then one other aspect with regards to the proposed configuration versus the more recently submitted one, it does, I guess it, yeah, look, it was hard to tell the scale, but it does look like the proposed detention pond would be remaining, and so there is that potential between the detention pond and the building footprint for that second
Yes,
building
we-
envelope?
The retention pond was designed for a 100,000 square foot building,
Oh, great, okay.
so that there is room to expand.
Good. So that was just going to be my point. Make sure that any of those type of improvements that you would require, planning commission would, at that point, you might want to see a plan for the site to ensure that those improvements are in the appropriate location.
Anytime somebody builds a manufacturing building, they hope it's small, it's too small.
Right.
So they can increase their business. So
Exactly.
we're giving them room here to expand
Right.
their footprint. And, this property lends itself well for doing that.
Right. So then move, because that also then speaks to the next item with regards to landscaping and landscaping requirements. There are some specific requirements with regards to the number of trees that go along the road frontage adjacent to the road. Technically, based on the current, this configuration right here, there is supposed to be 13 deciduous, 104 shrubs, 6 ornamental trees. Applicant is proposing 3 deciduous, 4 evergreen, and 32 shrubs in that configuration. While the parking lot landscaping quantities are in compliance, and there's also technically a requirement for development area general landscaping, that requires, based on the unpaved area, to have 63 trees and 57 are proposed. In the end, the planning commission does have the authority to modify the landscape requirements as appropriate. My impression, based on the amount of landscaping proposed, while it is attractive as designed and configured and is in compliance with most of the issues, it seemed like by attempting to maintain the woodlands along the front property line, that might have been an effort on your part to utilize that existing vegetation for screening.
Well,
But right now also with current conditions, the scrub and the shrub has been
Yeah.
cleared, so only significant appropriate trees are,
I cleaned it
principal
up.
trees, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, basically,
I do think it would be best if that was reflected in the site plan.
correct. And so that leads,
Yeah, sheet C500
Okay.
has been updated
All right.
to reflect the latest conditions.
The drawing I have right now is the February, so
Oh, okay, then that was
That's
the
not-
old one, yes.
that's fine.
We
And
did the original survey that was there,
Yep.
they were cleaned up, and then we since went back and tied in all the trees that were left,
Very
and some
good.
significant sized trees.
yeah,
But we've updated it since, so if you have an older plan, then,
I got it in the packet here. I just had one open that I had previous
Yeah.
comments on.
yeah, I understand.
so our initial comments in this review letter are based on the initial submittal, so we would have to revise those, but it sounds like it's an issue you're revising the plans based on current conditions. So that's great. So we just get into those details, and I don't know what the planning commission, if you wanted to provide some comments on your preferred preference for whether you would want the applicant to just
You can
comply
go
with
for
all the Yeah, comply with all the existing ordinance standards, or if you were open to modification to some of them. It does look like there might be some also in front of the building. That's the one point I brought up, is that there wasn't any proposed landscaping in front of the building, but now on this concept there is,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing. And then one other aspect, and I'll turn to Ross and make sure if this is something that's normally required of applicants during the site plan process. There is a section within the landscape ordinance that does indicate basically a tree survey of any existing woodlands that are any existing trees that are 8 inches in diameter or greater. We have the woodlands on the northwest corner of the site. A significant portion would be taken out by the detention pond. So normally would the applicant have to provide a tree survey of those just to indicate?
I haven't seen it done.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it is a discretionary thing, at least that's the way that it's been treated in the past, not a formal tree survey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. Just an indication if there were any significant trees meeting that dimension. And that's something if the planning commission wanted to see that occur. But usually that's intended to indicate the applicant attempting to save some of the existing trees and then maintain them and utilize the existing trees as a means of achieving compliance with what's required in the ordinance, rather than putting in a large quantity of new trees, providing and saving an 8-inch or 12-inch, but there's 15-inch oak back there or something that could be saved. But given the proposal to utilize a majority of it for the detention pond, opportunity for finding that right tree in the right location to save it might be minimal. So, but it's open to an opportunity if that's something that you wanted to indicate. But I defer to the planning commission and their preferences on what they'd like to see in terms of landscaping. And then one other minor thing I had was in terms of lighting. I just recommended shifting one of the, either altering the light fixture or shifting position slightly to provide a higher light level at the access road, just so that way it makes it easier for greater visibility for drivers of the entrance and the vehicles in the vicinity of that entrance. Just in terms of ensuring that. But those were mainly my points with regards to that site plan as it was originally submitted.
Very, very good review, Mario. Any discussion on Mario's review or comments? I think as far as the trees, I think personally that the landscaping around the building, in front of the building, looks pretty good. On the backside, where it would be in its current configuration, adjacent to, not adjacent, but would be viewed from, say, high in the future, medium density residential. Well, if you built the whole site out, that'd be the far end of the site, right? So I think that would be the concentration of the trees. Like, I'll go to the drawing here, but for example, I don't think this amount of screening is sufficient for a residential area, but I don't think this is adjacent to a residential. Right. It is not right now, and there's no residential there now. Right. But I guess I would like to see, you had mentioned about a tree survey over here where the retention pond is and wetlands. That's an industrial facility. I'd be more worried about, a visual buffer and potentially a berm, for the future, which you also own that property, and I think you probably would share the same concern.
I'm not objecting.
Yeah. So as far as a tree survey, I don't know, that was kind of brought up as an option. I have no desire to have exact location and size and species of these trees where it's a good buffer. I think a good principle is to don't remove the trees unless you need to. But that is also an industrial property, and not as important as adjacent to the residential.
Is the wetland regulated? I'm not sure, I'm not up on my wetland.
I don't believe it
There
is.
was that
Is it-
comment
is it-
about,
it's less than 2
I don't
acres.
believe that it
it was gonna be, surveyed in the appropriate time frame. Is that, am I thinking about this correct site plan?
We have a wetland consultant out there right now.
Okay.
We have not received any information from them yet.
But I don't think it's regulated because it doesn't go anywhere.
And I think it's too small. I think it's not,
Small,
doesn't
and it
meet
doesn't,
the
it doesn't
size
flow
requirement.
anywhere. It just, it's kind of, I think, how the farmland drained into that area over time and created the wetlands that are there.
I think that's another thing that we'd want to look into, and I think you're gonna get into that more of environmental reviews and stuff like that. But I think a good step is to have your wetland consultant delineate the wetland and they provide like a report.
Yeah, we want to know what's there.
Yep. And I think some of these comments that we talked about, landscaping in front of the building or maybe on the north side, might change if you move your driveway, you know?
Right.
We're talking a whole different scenario. Any other comments? Go ahead, Mike. You got something to say?
No, actually, I just bumped into a chair.
Oh, all right, man, that's easy.
I guess the one thing looking at the site plan, 83 parking spots, I was the one that asked about the
Okay, yeah.
left-hand turn lane. I could see that shift change being a bit of a choke point as it's trying to get onto Old 23. The other thing is 83 parking spots, but you only have bathrooms for the ladies and the men's with one stall.
So what we tried to do with the site plan, because we don't know the use inside,
Yep.
minimize just enough to get building approval,
Okay?
and then maximize parking because we don't know what's going to go inside there.
Mm-hmm.
Inside there, I mean, do we need 83 parking spots? Maybe, maybe not. I can't imagine that we would, but if a small manufacturing company went in there and had 2 or 3 shifts, then you would need that.
Yep, yeah. I was also under the impression the site plan was a little more, shall we say, concrete. And
And it's
going
not.
forward, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a different dynamic.
And as far as the left turn lane, trying to come at this from a common sense standpoint, ZF doesn't have it, and that building is far larger than this. And their parking lot is far larger than what we're proposing. And if anybody needs a turning lane, it's Tyrone, the golf course over there. When they're rolling in and rolling out during the summer with their golf leagues, it's pretty chaotic.
It might be, if you haven't already, talk to the road commission.
Yeah.
You know, and talk about the overall plan.
See what they think.
Yeah, because what if you said, you know, here's this potential 2 driveway scenario, you know, and say you have one driveway here and then another one here, and then you got ZF there, and then you built this whole site out and it was at full capacity, and here's a really high end of this traffic. What would be needed, you know, and then maybe think about that as you develop. Because what if you were right on the threshold of having a turn lane, and then you added one more tenant or one more building, and then now you gotta go to your turn lane, and you gotta rebuild your whole driveway approach. So it's a thought, but I'm kind of with you. From my understanding of traffic engineering, it's not quite there. There's not much traffic out there.
Not much,
But,
yep.
so, you know, there's numbers that can support that, and that's what we'd like to see, you know.
Okay. Worth investigating, I agree.
Yeah.
Do it right the first time.
Yep.
It's a lot cheaper.
It always is.
And with that, I also think it's important to let the road commission know, here's why we have 2 driveways, because we can't cross this easement. That's a big deal. I didn't know that before. I think we probably should have known that in master planning. There's a lot of buildings that can't go in here. You can't just,
Right.
that's a big deal.
It is a big.
You know, and it provides context of why you're designing it a certain way. Because they're probably saying, "Well, put it all in one driveway." You know, that's very desirable, but here's why you can't.
Yeah, the best thing to do would be put a driveway right on top of that easement, but they don't want that,
No, heck, yeah.
that messed with at all, so.
Nope.
Yeah, so. I guess one thing that I don't really have comments on, but any thoughts on the building and the, architecture or anything?
I would probably recommend that you bring a picture of your current building to the public meeting,
The current building,
the one in Brighton,
okay?
to show them, you know, what you currently have in Brighton.
Is that based off of existing building or the idea?
The idea we have is kind of based off of, one of Kevin Johnson's buildings, like Miller Industries that he's
Yeah, that's
building.
very
off
nice.
of- Yeah, so something like that. The one in Brighton, Billy, is nice, but it's 1995,
Right,
but it's nice.
but it looks nice when
Yes.
you drive by it.
Yes.
So, I mean, when you come to the township meeting, I would show that, you know,
Here's-
Pictures
yeah,
of different
here-
buildings, yes.
well, what
That
it
one.
looks like,
Yeah.
I mean, so they know what you're gonna build.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And then it's probably not set in stone because you don't know who's going in there.
Right.
For example, that Miller's got them nice windows, but that might not fit for
I was actually looking at that thing.
all, you know, you got one small section of office where you don't know the use, so.
Right.
But I do think that it looks like a good building, but, yeah, I think other examples, like here's our idea, that might,
I'm being encouraged to build it as is because there's very, very little industrial space available for lease. However, thinking to myself, you know, that's great, but it'd be better to find a user. Because if you all of a sudden you come in here and, you know, they want 100,000 square feet, and they want a bunch of different offices and bathrooms and everything else, then you're spinning your wheels, rebuilding what you could have done from scratch to begin with, so.
Ross, this is kind of what I was talking about, and this may be because this is the February plan, but, you know, final design determined during final engineering, so that's like when you get with the county and all that, I'm not always clear on the preliminary finals.
Yeah, that was our understanding at this particular time, is that when we get to the county, we would provide all of the data that they need to, you know, to give us a thumbs up for the stormwater detention outlet.
Just like we did with Foster, making a change at they had a little comments and I was back here, so, understood. I had many minor comments on like site plan type stuff, but I don't know if you want me to go over them. Some of them are just like labeling the size of the sanitary and, you know, and force main, you know, because then you show the county, they probably already know, of course, but it's important to show the size and the owner of the utility. Small comments, really. Even if you move the driveway one bit, it would probably change it all. One of them was about like the ditching at the approach. I don't know, was there a culvert under there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you
Is there a culvert at the driveway approach?
Is there, that's a good question, I don't recall.
I think that, I believe it, looking at the,
Are you asking if there's an existing?
proposed culvert.
I mean, typically we would put one there, if it's not shown, then that would, unless it's at a high point, to be honest with you, John.
Yeah, I was just looking here at these contours, and it appeared that the roadside ditch was drained to the north here,
Yeah, maybe.
and it continued drained to the north, so
My guess
just
is
look
that-
to see if a culvert's needed.
Yeah, that would be shown on 301, so I think one sheet back, we're gonna,
Once again, these comments I had are in the February version,
yeah.
so,
Well, it doesn't look like we're showing one there at this particular time, but, yeah, we wouldn't stop the road water drainage. And certainly the road commission wouldn't allow us to do that.
yeah, so, like I said, you move the driveway, that's a different design, so I won't go over all that, but any other comments or any other thoughts from you on the rest of this process or what you want to do?
So, I mean, so far, you like the idea,
I do.
we just have to get through the
I do,
details and, okay?
Yep. So we'll continue with the public hearing for the rezoning. And if, at that time, if you want to talk any more about site plan, we can.
I have some meetings coming up with real estate people. They want to dig and dive into this to look at, you know, what do we have? What does the market want? You know, we can look at this driveway thing and look at how best to split this parcel up. And then I can get with my engineering team, and you know, if this center drive makes more sense, we can come up with a revised site plan and then resubmit it if that's the direction that the real estate guys are telling me makes sense.
All
I
right.
don't want to spend a bunch of money on engineering,
Yep.
and it doesn't make sense, so I kind of need to regroup, but I think that we have a concept. It could change from that, but I don't think drastically, and then with your comments here, I think we've got a game plan to, you know, end up with, you know, a good product at the end of the day.
All right.
I did have one question.
Go ahead.
I saw it on a previous plan. They had submitted an emergency vehicle maneuvering
Yeah,
plan.
they,
Should that be included? I know it's preliminary now, but
That's right.
yeah, they got
did
it.
I miss it?
It's
C200.
in there. Yep.
Is it
Well,
C200?
they got a
Yeah, right here.
WB67, which is the biggest truck to do a turnaround there. So you mean maneuvering throughout the site?
Throughout
Is that
the
what you
site,
meant?
yeah.
Probably a good idea to make sure that a fire truck can drive throughout the
Around the
parking
corners.
lot. Pull right up front to the front door. And I don't know exactly the size of the truck, but what we'll do at the end is we'll send these for review to the fire authority, which is 3 different fire authorities: Fenton Township, City of Fenton, and Heartland Township.
That's Fenton Township.
So maybe there's a specific one, but it might be nice for all of them, because if a big event, they might all have to bring in, I don't know if maybe one of the services has an extra big ladder truck, that water truck or something, you know? It'd be nice if all their vehicles could fit in there.
We also worked on Mr. Foster's
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
And we did provide a maneuvering plan for that, so we would probably use the same exact configuration for his particular.
I think that would be good, yeah. But, then at the end, we'll probably send it to the fire authority,
Yep.
because they're gonna have to review things anyway. And if you know what design vehicles they have, then they should be happy with it. But good comment, Mike. Not just the delivery trucks, the emergency trucks pulling
Yeah.
right up front.
Can you know, making that, I have a 40-foot motorhome, that'd be a tough radius around that island.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, if it was an
We have
emergency.
to have these, so from a practical standpoint, owning a manufacturing company, the islands tend to be speed bumps in reality. I get why you put them in there, or people want them for green, but they don't work. People drive through them, they drive over them. You know, for a warehouse and manufacturing facility, my recommendation is just get rid of them.
Yeah, but
They're-
better
they're-
that than a car though.
Pardon me?
I said better that than a car though.
Really?
You make that turn and there's a car there. You know, it's easier to go over a bump. It's not so easy to go over a
Yeah,
car.
I think you wanna have it so.
Well, you're not a landlord then.
Yeah, it's true.
Chris, but I mean, you want to design it so there's a car in every spot. You know, I think if the back wheel of that ladder truck or whatever kind of clipped over that curb, that's not going to be a problem unless you had a light pole there or something. But
But that's why you just adjust the radii, or
Yeah,
if you really have a concern, you make sure that the delivery vehicles and for the production are separated from the employee parking.
at,
sort of.
at the end of the day, we're
some
just going to
way.
go to the fire authority and say, "You guys happy
Right.
with this?" And
Exactly.
they're going to say yes or no.
Gotcha.
So might as well go to them now and get
Right.
it designed.
Right. I just hate
Yeah.
those landscape parking in the parking area, just because they're, from a tenant or landlord standpoint, you're always repairing them, and just, they're a nuisance. You know, the plows run into them, it's just a nuisance.
Anything else, Mike?
No, it's.
Anyone, any other comments on this item? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Moving to new business, item 2, Foster Storage Special Land Use Minor Change.
Well, since Chris is here, he's gonna help.
All right, any,
Come on up, Chris, you can help.
I'm sorry, I was saying goodbye to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Exactly what you
That's
said. So I'm Chris Brzezinski with Greg Squatter. I'm helping Brendan Foster with his plan. It is my understanding that we haven't made any physical changes to the layout of this particular plan since you last approved it. The one thing that we ran into a problem with was our discharge. So it was discharging into the road right of way, and the road commission did not want to see that. So they asked for an alternative. We are going to the neighbor to get an easement, and the wetland, the existing wetland, which is a regulated wetland that is along that drainage ditch and across the neighboring property and into an existing county drain. So we've just reconfigured our pond to discharge in a slightly different angle in a different spot. And I believe that's really all that we've done that's anything different than what you originally approved.
so it's right here.
It's right there, yep.
So that your physical infrastructure is not leaving your property, it's just where the water's gonna go.
Just how the water's gonna flow.
So
Yep.
what, let me ask you this, so what if the county requested, so what if, is that because the current drainage goes to that area?
Well-
What if you didn't have a neighbor that had an outlet, and all your property currently drained into the ditch?
That is a point of contention that I disagree wholeheartedly with the road commission.
Yeah,
So they're saying that because the ground doesn't infiltrate at all, we had some
Yeah,
infiltration tests.
yeah.
And they're saying that our volume is going to increase now, even though our rate is not changing, right?
Yeah,
But the overall volume.
that's the whole point of the pond, to control the rate.
Exactly, I absolutely right. And I think we're trying to appease them as opposed to getting this giant
Okay,
rubber match with them, going back and forth. We have a solution that would work for both parties, so we're gonna head this route. Although, if you, under your scenario where we didn't have a neighbor that was willing to work with us and a wetland, they're basically making this particular property undevelopable with that type of
But-
ruling. But we
Yeah,
have an
yeah.
alternative that we can make work.
So the county's basically taken a stance, what, 2 years ago, they made a change, and the road commission made a change on the.
yeah, there's been these big drainage changes.
Right, right. Not-
Water
not-
quality and water treatment.
Yeah, but it's just
Discharge.
the road commission, right? So basically, they were the ones who.
And
Not the drain commission, the road commission is the one saying that we can't discharge or have that flowage into the right of way of the road.
Yeah,
So they cannot take any additional. So any development going forward, they're stating is, you can't have any additional water that's not happening on your property as of today.
but right now, the water currently drains to there, right?
Yes, it does.
So my understanding, pretty decent understanding of drainage, but you can't go at a rate higher rate than it currently drains at.
And we're not.
We hold it back in the pond and it slowly goes out to the current rate.
Yeah.
But now they're saying the volume can, and now
Yeah,
they're leaving the location.
So they want us to infiltrate water, but this particular site
Yeah.
doesn't allow for that.
Huh.
So, we're stuck in an odd spot,
Yeah.
but we found an alternative way to go about this, which should work for everybody, but, because we had to relocate the pond and change a few things, we talked with Ross and he recommended that we come back.
Yeah, just to be clear, I have no issues with it, I was mostly just curious.
Yeah, that's.
Mario, do we have Mario do a review of this? No, I don't think so.
No,
Didn't need
because
it.
it's already a site plan.
So that was
Or
the change.
zoning.
Just
And
the water?
really, Yeah, it's just,
It's just a minor.
they're, instead of putting the water outletting from their retention pond into the roadside ditch, they gotta get an easement and drain it to the neighbor's property and go that way because the road commission told them to.
And it's already draining to that spot.
So have they
That's
seen
wetlands,
these
it's
drawings?
all- What's that?
Are they're okay with your concept?
Yes.
I mean, they're not gonna give approval until we give approval.
Yeah.
But they're good with it.
Yeah, and we're before Eagle 2, we're going to Eagle 2.
Okay,
so they
yeah,
gotta
you
get-
got to, because you're putting
Sure,
in the
but-
wetland.
right.
So, as far as myself, I'm okay with it. Any other comments, on this?
The one thing I noticed was in the plan, building C,
Okay,
it's got lavatories.
well, one thing I just wanna say for the applicant and Mike, that, Mike wasn't on the planning commission when we.
Late to the party
this-
there, I apologize.
We'll still bring the comment up, but right now we're focusing on this minor change. But
Okay.
go ahead, what page?
Mike, you must have an old drawing or something, because this is not reflective of.
This goes
that's-
from May 22,
Yeah,
so,
no, we're much further along. We don't have any, there's absolutely no.
Okay.
There's no bathrooms, they
there's
pulled it
no-
off.
There's no water coming into.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, little history, quick one. He originally was gonna build it with condos, and they were gonna be bigger, and you would, own it. You would own the condo, and there's deeds and all that, and then the market didn't support that, so he changed it to basically a regular storage place, a little different, bigger, nicer, but basically rentals.
Right, yeah.
And
And
it
really
eliminated
strictly
that.
boat RV, I mean, it's.
Eliminated
larger
some of the
spaces.
facilities.
What's
We eliminated,
Yes.
I think the water, we don't have water.
Yeah, we don't have water, we don't have
Yeah.
drainage, or sewer, we don't have anything in there. So we have no
Yeah.
bathrooms, we have nothing in there.
okay.
Was that what your comment was revolving the bathrooms?
Regarding the bathrooms, yeah.
There's not bathrooms. No,
Everything
it's just
from
like,
plumbing to septic to heat, yeah.
that's changed. I don't know how that got around.
Yeah, the latest plans that were just submitted don't appear to include that at all.
No.
It's
Okay.
Just the initial ones, so.
Like I said, came late to the party, so.
No, that's fine. We-
Sorry.
I'm trying to catch up, guys.
You're doing good, Mike. You're doing really good.
At least you know I'm reading what's been said.
Yeah. Any other comments from the planning commission? All right, thank you.
Yeah, oh, by the way, I made one last change too, because
Yeah.
ownership
The name.
has changed, the name's changed.
Yep,
So-
for the record, Ross emailed us.
Okay.
For the record, that it's not reflected in the board pack.
And that, it wouldn't be, I sent it to him today.
I know, but he sent us that.
Okay.
But, I think if there's, a motion to, what are we doing here, Ross?
This would be an approval.
Approval. If we have a motion for approval, we just want to say, including the final change with the name.
Yes, it'll be this latest version of the plan that you would.
All right, the ones that we got at our table here,
Correct.
but not the one that's on the website, so. Thank you.
Okay.
What? What, to change theirs? Yeah. I'd like to argue with them on that, but we'll let them, we won't hash it out. I was just looking for the name, but I think it's just over at I'm good with this. Any further comment? Or anyone, wanna make a motion for approval of this minor change?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll support that motion.
Motion and support for approval of the minor change for the Foster Storage Special Land Use site plan as presented in our board packets here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. If you guys want to stick around, we got data centers and medical marijuana to discuss.
I'm hungry.
All right. All right, moving on to old business, item 1, data centers. And I apologize for everyone. I failed to introduce Mallory special counsel with Foster Swift, which didn't have a part of the first two items, so maybe it's good timing, but this is Mallory with Foster Swift to help us out. Specifically, we brought her in for medical marijuana, but since she's here, I think we can maybe pick her brain on data centers, since we got them for special counsel on that topic as well. So for data centers, I think, Mario, you could take the start and go through your draft ordinance.
Yes. So before you right now is the first draft of the zoning ordinance, proposed changes to address data centers. Originally, we were proposing a particular type of format, but we just tweaked it slightly to mainly reflect and be consistent with the existing text that also is included within the battery energy storage systems regulations, solar and wind, because I do believe to be consistent with those kind of large scale uses, it's kind of appropriate to make sure that some of those conditions that overlap are included here. And so we've done a lot of research on these issues. There's still a lot going on, and basically in the end, I think one aspect of this that's keep in mind is that the applicants, at least that have come through, and then the characteristics of these particular uses are such that they're not easily discernible by if we did something by lot size or building size or that sort of thing. The level of technology is changing. It's changing every some of the data centers that our firm has been reviewing in other communities. They've changed in the 6 months since they've been proposed because of the level of technology and that sort of thing. So a lot of these requirements initially are about the submittal, having the applicants inform the township as to what they're really proposing with regards to this, because there's a lot of different alternatives that are even being floated out there. I just saw today that there's some company that's working with Meta, who's the owner of Facebook, that's proposing to create a satellite solar collection system in which they would be further enough out in geosynchronous orbit of the planet to collect the solar energy and then beam that energy with infrared wavelength down to a data center, because that's apparently some efficient way to do this. So needless to say, this industry is, and one thing about that I think is important is the fact that they understand the energy needs for these, and what they're proposing is relatively high. It's extremely high what they're proposing in terms of the different companies competing with each other, creating these data centers to service various types of computing services. So that's why the intent of these regulations are to, number one, create some definitions as to what we know of right now in terms of the type of users that could potentially come into the township. And then number two, identify the application requirements, what they would need to submit. And then number three, have some specific dimensional or quantitative standards that they would have to comply with regards to the various issues. So, and I have taken some, based on our previous discussions, I know we talked about certain ways that we could approach how we would cite these in terms of the proposed location. Based on my review of the existing ordinance, existing districts of the township right now, I am proposing that they go into the Pyro district. But once again, that's so that way there can be something in front of you so you can react to. So this is not necessarily a preferred configuration, I think, is the only option. I think this is just one way in which you could, the township could approach this. And if you wanted to do something else, like basically if you did want to do an overlay instead, then definitely we could create language to allow for that. But basically, I'd just be looking for your comments as we go along in terms of these existing standards and this initial approach, if we're headed in the right direction. You know, one other aspect of this is, once again, this is all about the zoning ordinance. We are proposing that at some point, after this, the next step be to consider a regulatory licensing ordinance to allow for a permit, so that way a lot more of the characteristics that are operational can be reviewed annually or biannually or whatever time frame the township board wants. And I think that'll be a key part that's important to some approaches to dealing with electrical usage, because these users still don't know, if they're ramping up their demand, what that demand and what that increase, what that impact will be on the grid, and what information they might need to, or what improvements might be done on the grid. And so one tool that I've learned about is that if these applicants are required annually or biannually to submit their usage standards and submit how that usage is being, how it's servicing their needs and size of their facility. If at some point they do say, well, we're gonna be it's not meeting our needs, in concert with the utility providers or in concert with consumers, to identify, all right, at this point in time, you know, year 1, year 2, they were fine, year 3, now we're gonna need more electricity because we're taking it right off the grid, and so we need to do this. That would be a process that could be done through, I believe right now, the most appropriate way is with a regulatory ordinance. I would defer to what's appropriate from a legal standpoint, but I think that annual licensing requirement that would be created with a regulatory ordinance will make sure that these uses, as they operate, don't grow to such a configuration that they're allowed. Because there's even things like the chips. Every 2 years, according to Moore's Law, they become twice as efficient and also half as expensive to create. So and not to belabor this even more, but things are changing. There was just a planning conference in downtown Detroit this past weekend, and we were talking about data centers, and so we were talking about the fact that even those are changing. And so other leading development agencies are looking into, they haven't even crafted their model ordinances yet because things are just changing so swiftly. So that's just a frame of reference where it is now. But basically, like I said, I'd like to appreciate your comments, and I can make any changes as you'd like. First about the definitions, then about the approach to the district we're proposing, and then the application requirements.
Thank you, Mario. Well, you guys can each go through comments and stuff, but one comment I had and thought is, you know, I still think overlay is the best way to go. Okay. You mentioned pyro, but pyro, as far as Tyrone Township, that was a future land use designation, right, that we no longer have?
Well, it is.
We don't have a zoning, do we have a zoning for it?
We do have a zoning district
Okay.
for it, and it's 3 sub-zoning districts essentially.
What
And that's
that,
reflected in that grid right there, that columns.
Now, we have that was kind of originally intended as a way to potentially zone out, phase out like M1 and M2 by the same time.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was designed in a way that really never panned out, never came to be. This was gonna be, primarily for high technology uses, which I guess data centers could fall in that category. So far, we've had absolutely no interest, since we put that in rezone.
so, how does that equate to our future land use map? What I'm thinking, I guess my concerns is having a zoning district determine where a potential data center could be, is someone could come in here and say, I want to rezone this. And then we're struggling with that. Or we got a little bit tighter pull if we do an overlay.
Well,
Not that we couldn't change it. Say for some reason, if someone comes in and said, I want to put a data center here, it's not in the overlay, you could change the zoning map.
Right, so,
But,
so there's pluses and minuses of both. The key aspect that I find with having it in a particular district is, and this will speak eventually to the marijuana discussion we'll have later, is that the township doesn't need to roll out the red carpet and make everything completely viable turnkey for an applicant. And so that means that if we have the regulations on the books, if someone does come in and then they say they find a location, they're really, I believe, from a good planning standpoint, the first thing they should do is if they don't find the right, if we don't have the right piece of property zoned, they request that rezoning. And the first thing we do is look at the master plan. And then within the master plan, the key is there is what's called the zoning plan. We have our future land use categories, and those categories line up with the current zoning districts or potential new zoning districts. And so what we could probably do, so within the current master plan, in the zoning plan, it specifically says that any property to be zoned pyro should be only where there's planned industrial, future land use category. So the first thing you do, you look at the future land use map. Where do we have planned industrial? Those are the places in which you could only be rezoned to pyro. So those, in my opinion, that's the only thing, that's the only locations that should be rezoned that way. And as long as the township is being consistent with following the future land use map for their rezonings, I think that's a solid approach. So someone couldn't decide, just because the zoning district exists, if they come in and submit an application that says, I want to rezone the southeast corner of the township, that's all ag right now, that's planned for agriculture, to rezone it to pyro, I would say the township has a strong case to deny that rezoning because it's inconsistent with the future land use plan.
So what about something that's adjacent to plain industrial?
So that's a little bit more of a general
This
question.
is
Yeah, so
where-
that's a possibility, but
Yeah.
but then I think that's once again based on, and so once again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know that, but in terms of the legal standing of that, but to me, if the township has a consistent rezoning practice of walking lockstep with the future land use plan, then I think that could be a strong argument where even if it's directly adjacent to something that's planned industrial, you still have a strong standing to deny that rezoning, even if it's right next to it. Now that's because then the question would be, all right, if they say there's not enough land that's planned industrial in the future land use map, well then what you do is you amend the map in the future land use plan. So that's the thing that I think that's the process. And then we'd have to open it up to amending the future land use, amending the master plan to increase the amount of land that's planned industrial at that point. And then they have to start with that process. They have to start with making sure that our future land use map is consistent with whatever piece of property they want to have rezoned to pyro. So if you keep in lockstep with the future land use plan, I think that's a pretty strong argument for denying anyone just putting pyro anywhere they want.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you gotta go through a process one way or another. I don't.
And another thing I think is important, both this and other discussions, what we're doing is creating that pathway. So that to me is a defensible argument. Well, that to me is a good planning policy to say, this is if someone wants to put a data center, here's the pathway you have to walk, and these are the things you have to do. And so as long as we establish that, I think that provides a good protection and good policy for the township for if someone does come knocking on the door for this.
So, let me just run a scenario by you. If you can see on their screen here, we don't have a lot of purple, which is industrial in our future land use map.
Right, yeah.
And we did it that way because we don't want a lot of industrial. We're
Right.
gonna accommodate certain uses, to stay legal, but, we don't have a lot. We really reduced it. So, say we, little different than from solar, because solar had a kind of a set area,
Right.
minimum area. Data centers really don't, but So say we have these limited purple areas, and someone comes and says, this land is not available, they're already used, this one's got a factory, this one's got a warehouse, and the other one has a concrete plant, and there's adjacent buildings, and those aren't available for this data center. And they proved a need, that data centers are needed, and we didn't have enough, so now they go to a court and or would they go to us to rezone it, and say they put it over here in the farming residential, which is a lot more residential area near the power line, and we deny that, because that's not where we wanted it. Well, you guys didn't accommodate enough land for it, and so now we go to the judge, and they give a consent judgment and say, okay, now it's plopped in this more residential area.
Right.
Or we go to the overlay method, and we say, here's where you can go. It might not be in the purple, it might be maybe adjacent to the purple. Here, hey, that's an overlay. And then they can't say, you didn't provide any use for it, any area.
I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry,
So-
Miller.
No, you're good. So, an overlay is a good way if you want to, maybe there's not like a big enough industrial zone, or, agriculture, wherever you may want it to be. It's a good way to kind of group in some other, basically districts to create, a new district. So it really depends probably on your map, on which is like, if there's a certain area that you think is best, and if it makes sense to put it in an already existing district, or, a good example would be maybe you have several ag districts, and they're in different corners of the township, but maybe you want to restrict it to just one of those corners. That's when an overlay would make more sense. But in terms of rezoning and your future land use map, each application is going to be unique, and so it's hard to say that right now, if you were to put an overlay district, someone could still come to you and ask to rezone to the overlay, or,
Yeah.
You mean adjacent from the overlay, they could still go and,
You could apply for a rezoning as an overlay. So it's just another type of zoning district. So say you're not in the overlay, you could come in and ask for a rezoning to add the overlay to your parcel.
So that's the one aspect that I think kind of opens it up with this approach. We were a little bit hamstrung because of the county's recommendations and this idea of and because there's a state law, and there's the Creole standards.
Yeah, we had that area.
So that's a little different. But to me also, John, to answer your question when you were talking about like how someone comes in and they want to do it like or something adjacent, it all depends on how well an argument they craft and the approach they take. And honestly, sometimes it depends on the judge and the judge that day, because and sometimes that just happens. But in terms of an overlay, the one thing aspect about this, for example, if someone was making an argument about this, if they were like, well, you did an overlay on these, that you put your overlay over your lower density residential. Well, I want to do an overlay, and I'm just going to put it over a different location of low density residential. So why would you deny me? What's so different about these particular low density residential zoned areas that allows for an overlay when I can't just do that in another location that's also planned or zoned low density residential?
But I
They
feel the
might
overlay-
have that argument.
But I feel like the overlay has that control. If we went with
Right.
zoning, they could say, well, if it's zoned this, then they could apply
Right.
anywhere in the township, and the overlay gets to really to hone us in. And to get to the point, my thoughts were, just my thoughts, but we would add, not all of this necessarily, but in this same area where we have factory, we have maybe a proposed warehouse, and over here, and that could be an overlay. Or even just the one over here where it's out of sight behind the factory. Now, it's adjacent to some residential, but
Yeah.
some of them are businesses. There's some, businesses up and down there in Center Road.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, it definitely could go that route too, like you were saying, if you wanted to do that, we could. It's just that I just wonder, I don't have enough knowledge of case law to understand if that type of argument
Yeah,
where someone says, well, your overlay is on any area, I want to put an overlay anywhere that you have low-density residential future land use category, because that's where you already put your low-density residential overlay. I mean, excuse me, where you've already put your overlay.
This is
So-
not something we're gonna solve tonight.
No, no,
It
no.
is, but it's good thoughts and how
Yeah.
we wanna do this. And before you started today, I was dead set on overlay, but now I hear the other method and maybe there's opportunity there.
Yeah.
I guess closing thoughts on this are, I think we gotta best prepare to say where we want it and protect from the judge or consent judgment where the applicant says where they want it.
But also there could be other tools we could use to like say, because whatever approach you want to go with, we could identify the characteristics that warranted that decision. For example, we could say that these locations were indicated because they're within X distance of the transmission lines. And if we
Yeah,
did
but-
that would then, because.
The bad thing about that is it goes right through the whole township, so there's a
True.
lot of area, so we don't,
True,
We
but
don't wanna
then
sit back.
you have to layer your
I
argument.
get.
And
that
then
was an
also
example,
say-
I get it.
Or those locations with, there's a high transmission power line that are also this far away from smaller residential lots. So like try and lay down the discussion as to why these locations that have been chosen
Yeah,
are the best shot.
gotcha.
And so that I'm not necessarily going one way or the other. Once you guys decide, make a decision, we'll do the best we can to frame the language to have a good approach. But yeah, that when it comes, this is, like I said, I did this for discussion purposes for tonight.
No,
See your,
your discussion on the zoning area really opened it up in my eyes when I was set on the overlay, but there's still,
benefits, yeah.
yeah,
Pluses
there's
and
different
minuses.
processes for each, and maybe, yeah, so some big deal to think about, really. At the end, we're gonna have to make a decision at some point. Zach's not here, but he's gonna tell us when we need to start having this wrapped up by, that's a big deal. Okay, moving on to the site, or are you gonna go over some of this and highlight?
Well,
Maybe just the highlights.
yeah, just a
Not-
highlight,
you
we're
don't have to read
going,
it
just
out.
jumping back to a second for definitions.
Yep, okay.
Remember, we talked in the past how there might be eventually, if we do get this rezoned and the property that gets rezoned now, instead of warehousing, they want to do manufacturing, and then that manufacturer wants to have some computing power for their tenant. So that's the idea of having an enterprise data center. Basically, it's a data center that has a little bit higher capacity for a particular tenant, particular user. And those are small scale. So that's why, we even went into and getting the details of occupying less than 5,000 square feet of space, and typically operating on less than 100 to 150 kilowatts of power. We found those characteristics are somewhat part of the different enterprises. Now, that is still kind of high, but it's intended to create a different category, because then we're consistent with these edge or micro data centers. These are the ones that are, once again, smaller in scale, but they provide, processing for particular industries, like banking industries, when you mentioned something like that, but they're smaller in scale. But then, when it comes to larger, the hyperscale ones, you both have the hyperscale, but also even these multi-tenant or co-location ones. The co-location ones tend to, they build it on spec, they build them, they want to have them as large as possible to gather as many occupants within the building for their computers, and so that's why it gets into the megawatt size, the 10 to 60 megawatt for a multi-tenant or co-location, and then hyperscale just gets those larger ones we're seeing, the 60 to 100 megawatts. We are proposing a cap right now currently on that, and I mean, as a definitive number, whether you could then indicate that if someone comes in with more than that, then maybe they're not permitted, that's something I defer to legal opinion, whether you could do something like that. But,
Yeah, like
but the idea being, rather than at this point putting 60 or greater megawatts, we just said, let's see if we can do 60 to 100 and say, if you're over 100 megawatts, I'm sorry, you're too big for the
Yeah.
township, please find another location. I don't know if that's
Valerie, do you think
how
that's
feasible that
possible to say, we don't want data centers over a certain megawatts?
So you can't flat out like prohibit any land use if there's a demonstrated need in the, I forget the exact terminology, it's like if there's a demonstrated need for that use in like the surrounding area. The courts have not clarified what that means, like that means use within your township, within
Yeah.
your region, you know, and that's kind of where the larger solar and wind things come in. And so to flat out prohibit something over a certain megawatts or however data centers are measured, could be problematic if someone were to want to put something of that size in. They would say, you've effectively prohibited this land use, and then they would have to kind of make the argument that there's a demonstrated need for it within whatever area they want to use for the local area.
Thank you.
And so we would recommend not having a specific prohibition against any that are 100 megawatts or greater, but we believe one approach could be by having this criteria in there, when someone does come and if they say, oh, ours are going to be 120 megawatts, they go through the process and then maybe your justification and the findings of fact to deny one larger after they go through the process is because they are beyond the size and scale of what the ordinance identifies as hyperscale. So it's just one approach. I mean, once again, it's something that is always being in flux as how defensible that is, but it's, we didn't want to right now just open it up all the way for this first draft.
Greg,
More for Valerie and Mario, can you consider restricting the size of the buildings? And I say that just because it would say they go away in 10 years, and now I got this giant building that is.
well, in zoning in general, you can regulate the size of the building, right? I mean, in our zoning districts, we can say you can have this big a barn. In this district, you can have this big a structure.
And that's what I'm saying, if they want to put 120 megawatt, well, you can put a 60 in here and a 60 in there, and that, and I'm not fully understanding the whole thing. I'm just trying to think of the future that.
I think that too, not only for future, but even just the looks of it. Say we had to have 100 megawatts of data centers. I'd rather see it in the 4 different buildings that look more like this warehouse or something than
fit the area.
the
Tell them to
Amazon
put
warehouse.
space in there too.
yeah. We can regulate all that. Yeah.
There's just so much more you can make it fit the rural character that we're trying to maintain.
So you could limit, you know, height, size, etc., but only to the extent that it wouldn't be effectively prohibiting the use. So
Yeah.
if for some, like, and I don't have a good concept of what these buildings like need in terms of size. So if you made it so limited that they couldn't actually do whatever they needed to do, that's where you would run into the issues. But generally speaking, you could definitely limit the area or lot coverage is a good way to limit size of building. You can only use 60% of your lot or something like that.
But with, with solar, there was a state law and it had a number to it. And that number could equivalent to a size.
Yep.
Well, we're not with that here. And I think of it like a warehouse. Like, there's warehouses out there, like an Amazon warehouse or something, that's just huge, right? So big. Now, should they be in every township? Just because maybe there's a need for it? No. But I think you can regulate, data center, they could be small or big. So we're not excluding the use, but not every size of the whole, you know. Just a thought, I think there's definitely a lot more to,
Yeah, and we do have some building design standards, so we definitely can get more into the details when we get into that of what is appropriate. We do have a lot coverage requirement not to exceed 40% proposed. So we picked some numbers and we can tweak those as you
Yeah.
see fit. But yeah, definitely, I think my initial reaction is we could be consistent with the policy of the township and say, these size buildings, this type of lot coverage, these type of, are what is going to be compatible, or what is going to be consistent with the rural character, with the character that we want to, in the final character that we want for the township. So those are the different categories, or different types of data centers defined, because then when it gets into the actual regulations, we do split them up between enterprise and edge data center regulations, and then co-location and hyperscale data centers. So
quick pause on that.
Yeah.
A thought is we might wanna split those up into the location too. Like we talked about overlays, there could be two overlays, right?
Right.
I mean, and this is just a thought, what if applicant in an industrial park wanted to have 20,000, like maybe a mini data center, right? And it wasn't the primary, what do you call it, edge? That's like, maybe there's their business is different, but they have like a data center in it.
Correct.
Like there's enough equipment to consider it a data center.
Yep.
You know, that might be allowed there, but doesn't mean you want a hyperscale there.
Correct.
So just a thought on the location.
No, and I agree, and that's actually one of the reasons when it comes to the locations of where they're permitted. That's why I kind of like the idea of the pyro, because within the pyro we have three different classes of the A, B, and C: research and office, light industry, and then general industry. And so we indicated enterprise and edge as special land use in the research and office, and then not permitted in anywhere other district. So maybe allowing them in others could be possible, but then but trying to focus them on just that zoning category.
Oh, I see.
And then-
You did exactly what I asked, or what I thought, within your zonings.
Right, yeah.
But the problem is we don't have those zoning districts.
Right, and so one thing I think would have to be done to support this more would be to refine the master plan to specify exactly where the Pyro A go versus Pyro B versus Pyro C, because if you don't have that specification, then they could put it in any of the other ones, so that kind of falls apart. So it's kind of like building a house of cards. You have to have that strong foundations. We'd have to make sure the master plan supports it. But that type of approach, like saying where the smaller ones go are allowed versus the others, I think is important. And that's the reason why when we got to these regulations, we kind of did have them separated into the different types. As you can see, the enterprise and edge data centers are very minimal, just because we're, with the thought process being they are basically almost an accessory use to an office or manufacturer or some other particular existing single business. So that's why, we're just saying they require special land use and site plan approval. There's certain minimum setbacks that they just comply with what's in the Pyro A district. We do regulate the sound level, and then just making sure that they comply with all the code standards. Because in theory, at the enterprise and the edge with that 150 kilowatt size, in theory, would be something that could be incorporated into basically an office building or an office park setting, and you wouldn't know it, just because of the needs of them typically don't get to the point where the volumes are such that you see at the hyperscale. Like their characteristics are such that they could be accommodated within an office park. So that's why we went that route. And then in the co-location and hyperscale is where we get into the whole 9 yards. And so in terms of the site plan requirements, submittal requirements, we do list it out. And some of these are exactly as the language that you already have for solar, wind, and battery.
Good start.
Yep, so, natural features preservation, including that tree survey that's already included, environmental impact analysis, I do believe that's pretty similar to what you already have, a stormwater management plan, specifying that, stormwater infiltration study, to also get to that next level, because based on, these are hyperscale and they're occupying 300, 400 acres, they might need, for example, like we just saw tonight, how if the soils aren't correct and they're presuming that they'll be able to do infill as part of, infiltration, well, we need to know that if that site they've chosen is gonna be appropriate for that proposed infiltration, if they're gonna have a large scale stormwater detention, especially if we have other outside entities that are saying the volume they're gonna be accepting into the roads is gonna be limited. So that's why they'd have to require to submit that. A decommissioning plan. In some cases, we include the details of these submittal requirements in the first half, and sometimes they're in the second. But the decommissioning plan gets very detailed.
Can I ask about the
Absolutely.
decommissioning plan? So we have a plan. How do we ensure that there's funds to see the plan through?
So there does require some type of escrow and some type of bond to be held to meet those standards for the decommissioning plan, similar to what we have. And that's a thing I also think is gonna be important, to be consistent with how we've dealt with or have proposed for wind and solar, because those definitely have a finite lifespan.
And I know you didn't help us with the extractive engineer as much, you were part of it a little bit, right?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
But that's something that I think we need to we gotta be consistent with things.
Right.
If for extractive industrial, we can't say the decommissioning plan is this, and we're gonna request this, and solar is something different,
Right.
we need to be consistent, so.
Yep. So it would be some type of financial instrument they would have to provide to ensure, and I think that's also gonna be one benefit of the permitting process and the annual submittal, is to make sure, all right, we still have, is this instrument still functional, and is the money still there, or whatever instrument they have. So that's why I think another tool that a regulatory ordinance can provide you.
Myself, I like the proposal. I thought it was very comprehensive. Looked at everything, including the decommissioning, and what do they have to have on retainer to wind things down in case the original company doesn't exist. There were a couple of things, and I guess I'm a little unsure. When they start having definitions of edge and, let's see, what was it? Edge and enterprise, like enterprise mentioned less than 5,000 square feet and a power rating. Edge said small. I don't know how you define small. From an industrial standpoint, it's small. From the neighbor standpoint, it's big.
Right.
You're talking the exact language in the definition?
Yeah, the exact language.
Yeah,
If we
and
could go
I
square
think
foot.
eventually, once we get to a final we gotta have more,
Definition.
absolutes on these, because some of the language, like typically, data centers typically occur less than 5,000. Well, that's just typical. We're not typical, but we're still, we gotta have, the enterprise data center shall be between this and this.
Okay,
Just my thoughts, but tighter wording.
tighten it up as it gets
Yeah.
developed further, yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, that would need to be numbers
I think
decided,
now
and
we're
then.
still in a very rough draft, and this is the first text language that we've got together, so.
But I do think that's a good approach, to make sure to
Yeah.
find those instances which it could be interpreted
Yeah,
too
and so
broadly,
it's-
and then make decisions as to what the quantities should be.
We might want to consider having different decibel readings at nighttime versus daytime. I saw some of that out there too.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thought, but it's almost like whatever we are willing to tolerate at nighttime, let's just make that at daytime too. I mean, why let them get louder at night or during the day? Let's keep it, whatever tight as the attorneys are gonna allow us to get
Yeah,
on that one. But similarly to, these data megawatt numbers, when we get to decibels and stuff, I mean, we're really gonna fine tune those numbers. 'Cause I couldn't tell you what 45 decibels is. I think you have a much better knowledge of that.
Not if you ask my wife.
But, if it made sense to have different decimals, I think that'd be a good
I
idea.
was just doing some digging on the decibel readings, and some of the things that I found had different readings, 45 to 55 during the day, 40 to 50 at night, because there's a natural drop-off in the background noise. So the...
Sounds different. I can hear the highway at nighttime. I can't hear it during the day.
Yes, that type of a situation with the
Yeah.
data center.
That's a good point.
What I was saying on that though, Mike, is whatever we consider for the decibels, like if it was at nighttime, the low one, just
Yep.
apply that throughout, but maybe that's
Don't forget seasons.
Yeah, I think that's,
seasons, worst case. Winter when there's no leaves on the trees and you can,
yeah.
Yeah.
the air density's different, sound travels.
Oh, yes.
No, that's a good point, because my initial concern was the fact that they run 24 hours a day.
Yes.
So whether it's but you're right, the other ambient conditions could impact that. But I do think the best approach is find that lowest level and stick to it. But then also we'll have to make sure to consider whatever number that might be, we find as appropriate. We might have to change their existing standards to apply that to all other industrial uses, just to be consistent.
That might be worthwhile. I mean,
Otherwise, it would give a developer a
yeah, why
data
is
center.
why is a
point,
concrete
yeah.
plant allowed to go 60 decibels, but we gotta be 45, they
Yep.
take it to the judge, and then
Right,
then they're at 80 decibels.
right.
And some of the other things I saw, like getting into additional information, testing. I know there was one line where it was mentioned at the applicant's expense. But if we could kind of include that anywhere, there's gonna be a cost involved to drive home, hey, this is all on your dime.
Felt like we did a good job on that one, on the extractive industrial. It's been a little bit on that one, but once again, we gotta be pretty consistent.
Yeah, and I would think, once again, in my head, I'm thinking of, while it is, you're right, absolutely right. I also think that's a thing we can tighten up also with a regulatory ordinance.
Oh, there you go.
Because in terms of annual licensing and
Yep.
that sort of thing, that can be directly tied to whatever annual reports they have to create
Yeah.
for, water usage, and electrical usage and that sort of thing. So we're going in, like I said, majority of these are intended to be word for word or very similar to what's already existing for, things like fire and safety protection. But then we do have to
Well,
get
on the-
into,
On the fire and safety protection, I think it is similar, but we're talking, a lot of these zoning things, sound is sound, right? Whether if it's a concrete plant or a data center, right? But when we get to fire protection, I think that one's a lot trickier. I mean, battery storage really pushed the buttons on that one, or could, potential use on that one, and we were mandated to allow that use.
right,
But, I just think we gotta really protect ourselves, and it's something like, you can only build as big a data center as our fire departments are willing to safely mitigate.
so I agree, and not to be a broken record, but in terms of the approach, the idea being within the zoning ordinance, they submit the application, submittal requirement, and then have some type of standards but basically the standard would be whatever the fire department wants. But then also, I think the regulatory ordinance can get into that idea of like, all right, if you're proposing this, then, and it opens up to the third idea of how we incorporate community benefits into this.
Right.
During the initial application, then I feel like the regulatory ordinance can get to that standard of saying, all right, you're proposing this, but it'll also be based on the particular user and their characteristics. Because what if some of them have a small battery storage location versus others? What of them, others use a particular material that is more hazardous, that suddenly ramps up the needs of the fire department to have the correct equipment? And so, based on their application submittal, the details they provide, and based on the standards that the fire department hold to, regulatory ordinances and possibly discussions with community benefits says, all right, this is what we need if you're going to design and have this size, scale, number of batteries, whatever you're proposing. But I find it hard to know what that is without knowing what they're proposing. Because some of these places have a large number of batteries, and others are using much less. So it's all based on the thing that gets walked through the door. I think this is intended to set up, all right, give us all the information we need so then we can set the standards based on your particular characteristics. And it won't be, logarithmic in terms of the changes. It'll be appropriate for what they're proposing. So I think that's a defensible argument. So anyway, like I said, we're going into those. Some of them get into, sound and vibration analysis that's specific to the data centers. That's not in the others. Electrical and grid feasibility and power utilization plan. That's my initial attempt to have them do their own analysis as to how they're ramping up, because their initial application might be about, this is only going to be this big, but if they plan on growing, they need to have that for the lifetime of what they're proposing.
One of the things that I was wondering about with the testing,
Mm-hmm.
I know we were talking about doing it every 12 months. Could we have it like 6 and 12 months for the initial year? And as long as it's within the allowable limits, then we can go every 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
If they fail at 6 or 12, then that clock restarts again, and they've got to still test twice a year until they pass, and then they can go once a year type of thing.
Yep. No, something like that I think is appropriate, because that's a typical approach for most reviews. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, especially like if someone violates it, then now you're back to square one,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, just thinking initially, if there's a noise issue, you don't want the residents to be living with it for a year to find out there's a problem.
Yep. And actually, that's one thing, I'm going to have to do the regulatory ordinance pretty soon. The regulatory ordinance, even we're going to be proposing a mitigation plan for residents. So whenever they have any kind of a complaint resolution process, a complaint resolution process that we handled administratively. And so when that comes in, those concern is held at the administrative level and find some way to to accommodate it from a staffing standpoint, but then we'll have to do that. But that's, I think, on the regulatory ordinance. But I also, that idea, because we've had that, we're proposing that in other communities too, to say, when this comes in, here's the approach. So that way they can't, the operators can't say that we're picking on them basically, or someone's picking on them, is like, if there's a consistent approach that's applied every time, I think that's the best way. And then also, in the end, in theory, I mean, if someone comes in and they're willing to be a good neighbor and they're willing to do everything they need, and they can prove that they're not gonna negatively impact the adjacent use, we do want to give those operators the ability to operate, without a lot of encumbrances. So, and that's the approach I think we have to have, because remember, we do have some clients that actually are in favor of operating them. And that's not to say that the township needs to be, once again, rolling out the red carpet. But I think if they come in, we want to make sure that they are going to be good operators and allowed to conduct business, because they're standing behind what they're proposing and they're compatible. So.
Yep, all we can say is, here's what we're willing to accept.
Right. And
then in the regulatory ordinance, we review it and manage it.
Right. So I know this is a lot to digest in a short amount of time. I have taken some notes as to what some of your initial concerns. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on this approach, and if we're heading in the right direction, or if you have any specific proposed changes or anything to that effect. And so I'm willing to do whatever you feel is necessary as we can proceed down crafting this.
I think you did a very good job of looking at our recent previous ordinance amendments with solar, wind, battery, you know, so that we're in line with everything. It can be tweaked a little bit, but I think we'll get, you know, further have legal counsel analyze that where we can. But I encourage you to look at probably extractive, industrial, and others. You know, and maybe the suggestion is we change others. You know, other ordinances.
Is it, you talk about the electrical generators as a backup, do they fall under the same noise requirements as the data center operates under?
I can't remember if I did make them already the same. I think these might be lower than what is on the books currently,
Okay.
so we might have to
Didn't quite
adjust them
see
one
that
way or the
part,
other.
Yeah,
I'll have to check, I can check
When
that.
you're talking the noise?
yeah, the noise
But
on,
that should be the overall site, the operation of the whole site we're not specifying which equipment is.
No,
allowed in the noise.
you know, at the property line, yeah, that's
I
what they
mean,
have to meet.
it's
I
probably
just-
gonna be the backup generators, I don't know,
And the,
You know, 'cause
what kind of air cooling too, like if they have a lot of air cooling there, then that's usually
Okay.
what also requires it. But yeah, it's intended to be just at the property line, because once again, being consistent with everybody else and just being like,
Yeah,
hey,
okay.
at the property line, this is what it has to be. Whatever it is you're going on in there, whatever that activity you generate, like, once again, it was based on, you got 50 massive air cooling systems, or if you have 2, regardless of that, this is the noise level you have to have at the property line, so.
Very good, first rough draft, I'll call it. And coming in the future is regulatory. And then
Yes.
one other thing for all of us, including Ross, is we gotta touch on the schedule. I think it's best to touch on that when Zach's here, so we can communicate with the board, but, you know, as we get into this, and we hear these things developing more, you're going to conferences, I've heard of other, you know, this industry is ever changing, and we're learning more. I don't think we want to be the first one to put out an ordinance, you know, so I would encourage Zach to communicate that to the board, that we're gonna be in a more learning phase for a while, rather than to get something out because our moratorium says a certain date.
And
But,
to the
then
best,
we can kind of get back on schedule, still stay to a schedule, but I think it's, in my mind, longer than we originally anticipated.
and to the best of my knowledge, I do believe it's acceptable practice that as long as you've made significant, or made progress on creation of the ordinance, you're allowed to do an extension of that moratorium for another 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know what your specific moratorium ordinance says.
6 months.
6 months, and then renew for another 6 months.
I think it was right in there, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it definitely would be appropriate if you need to extend it a little longer, while you're actually working on regulations.
So is there anything you'd like to see in the next revisions? Or do you want to just have more discussion at the next available meeting? Or?
I mean, you know, I guess overall in planning commission meetings, we haven't really discussed this in general, but I think a good goal, I like to keep the meeting about a 3-hour maximum, right? We still have a medical marijuana to handle and some other items, so yeah, I think we need to continue this discussion, but any further development that you come by yourself, or any further comments, questions that we have from the planning commission, send it through to Ross and he'll communicate it to Mario, and you're gonna continue to develop the regulatory ordinance, so we're making progress.
yeah, I think, like you said, it's a good first rough draft.
It's a good first rough draft.
Very thorough.
I mean, we could probably talk about it for another hour, but like I said, just a good rule of thumb is a maximum of 3-hour meeting, and it keeps the focus in, you know? So with that, any further comments on data centers?
Do we have any expectations for Mario to bring something to the next meeting?
Well,
Or,
I don't have an expectation. I think making progress on the regulatory, you know, any feedback that we have can still get communicated through Ross. Ross will do his best to communicate it to Mario. Maybe you copy us. I can't understand all the exact rules, if we should be doing a chain of command through emails, but
If it's just comments, questions, potential edits.
send it to Ross and he'll share it as he feels, as needed.
Yep.
And then, it's making progress, but once again, it might really just be, you know, going through this in more detail the next one, anything else he comes up with. And, you know, to be honest, we, for as big and important as this document is, we kind of just got it, right? So, with that, I think, close the old business item 1 data centers and move to old business item 2, Michigan Medical Marijuana Act regulations.
So, I believe you all got the public legal memo that Laura and I wrote. Just kind of at the outset, if anyone on the commission has like specific legal questions about any specific provision of your ordinance, we really encourage you to, let me know either tonight or email, and we can always get you, a more detailed legal opinion that we would go into closed session to discuss, just because anything we talk about in open session, we're waiving attorney-client privilege. So if there's anything that's super specific, I would encourage that to be something that we talk about in closed session. This was, my understanding was the county's planning commission reviewed a proposed amendments, disfavorably, and so this is more to clarify some of their comments. And then if there's just kind of like general questions about that, we could talk about that, if that sounds good to everyone. But I think one of the big things to note is that the county planning commission their role is advisory only. They can't veto or overwrite township zoning. Their comments are always great to consider. You know, they're kind of generally looking at zoning from a countywide perspective instead of a specific township. So it's kind of good to take that into consideration. They, you know, see various ordinances from the different townships in the county, so they kind of have that perspective. But they're not the ones making the local policy. That's you guys and the township board. So that's one thing to note. I think the biggest thing that was off about their review is they're really heavily relying on the Byron Township case from 2020. They almost suggest that it limits your all's authority to be able to regulate through zoning these types of facilities and uses, and that's not the case. So the Supreme Court was clear that the MMA does not conflict with local zoning ordinances. Townships are free to zone these uses. Like I was saying earlier, you can't zone in a way that effectively prohibits them, but that's not what you guys are doing here. And, you know, I think the county left out some subsequent cases that came after Byron Township that just reaffirmed what the Supreme Court held, that the MMA, and always
Yeah, yeah, but that's right, yeah, MMA.
It's not a locational act, free to zone it into the appropriate districts and do all your typical zoning things when it comes to these types of land uses. So that's kind of the biggest thing that, you know, it's advisory. The Supreme Court has supported local zoning of medical primary caregiver uses. Another thing is, so the more case right after that just reaffirmed everything that DeRuyter Byron Center for Byron Township held. And then another thing is there's a few instances where they point out that, in their opinion, certain provisions were high risk or legally risky. They didn't really provide a lot of background on how they came to those conclusions. I think in one instance, the comment was, there's really terrible case law, but they didn't say what that was.
Right.
And we're not really sure what they were talking about in that context. And so you know, I think that it's good to take into consideration their comments, but they're not always going to, be 100% correct on the law, or they're not gonna know your township. A big part of zoning is, it's your community, you know the area best. The context of that local community is very important to how you make zoning policy. And so the county can give some opinions and comments on that, but you all in the township board know best. So that was a very.
One of those potentially legally risky comments was under section C.2, where we said only one caregiver per parcel. And
Yep.
they didn't really provide a good,
I don't think I pulled that one out. Yeah, so, again, that's not something that's in the MMA. It's pretty typical that you're only going to have one use per parcel, one primary use, principal use per parcel, and then have accessories. So again, broad strokes, not concerned about that.
so you don't think that's legally risky?
That one go. I think there's always a risk when you're limiting any type of land use, any type of land use. Generally speaking, no. You're not saying that only one person can live somewhere. You're saying that only one primary caregiver operation is allowed at a
Per parcel?
per parcel, yeah.
I don't see the risk in that.
I mean, it just said, you know, we're just kind of going down the list. It said we should check with legal counsel.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm just-
I think we just keep it as one, you know, it does say that we, you know, they gave demonstrated substantial health safety rationale, which we don't have to do in the ordinance, do we?
No.
Okay.
And I mean, if you look through anyone's zoning ordinance, you're not putting your rationale.
Yeah, on every little ordinance,
provision,
I know.
you know, that's something that's gonna be reflected in your meeting minutes, or if you use a resolution to recommend adoption, a lot of times we'll spell it out there. But yeah, the ordinance itself does not need to, on its face, say, and this is why, and this is how this relates.
So I guess on that specific item, I say we keep it one caregiver per parcel. Except the risk. There's risk in everything.
Right.
Anyway, that was kind of a side note. I don't know if you had any other thing to go through on that.
I think one thing, another thing that the county pointed out as being legally risky, is and of course my papers are all scattered, so I have like half of it here, but yeah, section L on the security and the inspections. It could be tightened up to be specific to that you're inspecting for zoning compliance, not just
Who,
any
how
cop
how
can
big
go
your
to
weed
the-
is or something?
What was that?
No.
No. Yeah, I think that the county's concern is that the way, it could be read to say that in accordance with state laws, meaning any law of the state, just kind of an open authority to search. That's not, something that you can do, but people can consent to administrative searches as a condition to a zoning permit. And so that would be something like making sure that you're complying with these requirements. That's something that by accepting the permit, you could essentially waive your Fourth Amendment rights.
So is that something we need to change in the regulatory ordinance?
It could be, yeah, I think we might need to
We add in there-
tighten it up.
Add in the regulatory ordinance that, you're consenting to inspection.
Right,
For
but
zoning.
consenting to for zoning,
For
exactly,
zoning.
yeah, for zoning.
Right,
So I think that's, we were tightening up some of those other things as we did. We were considering, this is an opportunity. We talked about, would this be an opportunity to make sure they're in compliance with things? But I do agree, yeah, you want to be consistent and saying, all right, the permit is a zoning permit, so you're only looking for zoning compliance.
So you know how to update that?
I can find that in the regulatory and shore that up, yep.
Okay. Everyone good with that?
Yep. So since we've, excuse me, accepted some of the recommendations with tightening up the verification of compliance, but have not accepted others, what's the next step?
Well,
Do we
I think
have
we
to
gotta
go
go through
back
each
to
one of
them?
these. I think we gotta go through each one of these until, so we're getting, opinions from our legal counsel to make our best recommendation, because without Zach here, none of us are attorneys that I know of. And then, we're gonna give direction to Mario to rewrite it.
Okay.
I think there's some revisions to be made. It's not just like, we're gonna ignore everything. There's some revisions to be made, and I think one of them has to do with the setbacks. I think our setbacks might be,
Bit much.
I think they're exclusionary, because, we say that you can only do this in B1, B2, M1, and M2. And it has to be, it cannot be within 500 feet, the parcel of this operation cannot be within 500 feet of a residential zoning district. Not a house, a resident. So you look at our B1, M1, and M2s, every one of them's next to we don't have like a huge block of this, and then you could accept it in the middle. We have these kind of, very few of them scattered out. So with that, I don't think there's one available. Now, they would have to rezone like a whole bunch of parcels, and then take that one and make it caregiver operation. So that's, wouldn't you agree that that's exclusionary?
Yeah, so to the extent that you have the, like, if you're looking at your zoning map and you're looking at these setbacks, and you're like, okay, so yes, we allow it, but there's actually nowhere they could put it, then yes, that would be,
Yeah, so basically,
effectively prohibiting it.
basically this red and purple is where the current zoning allows it.
And then they'd have to be within 500 feet inward.
Well, they would have to, they cannot, the parcel for the caregiver operation can't be 500 feet from a residential zoned parcel. Well, everything in here that's white and green and yellow is a residential zone parcel, which is almost the entire whole map. So you couldn't identify one parcel here that is not within 500, that would allow in the B1, B2, M1, M2, none of those are more than 500 feet from a residential parcel. So, like I said, the only way to get around that would be, you'd have to get multiple parcels rezoned. And then,
So, yeah,
we got a little ahead of ourselves, and
Yeah.
we made it pretty tight, but, so, that may have been a good comment that we
Yeah,
needed.
definitely.
and so, I agree, yeah, that can be an issue. And so this is actually something that I have pretty good experience on, because dealing also with things like adult businesses and sexually oriented businesses, that sort of thing. We have to make sure the setback requirements are high.
He had faith in us that he's gonna.
He said his
So we're
name
gonna
too
still
many
talk?
times, he shut up.
Good morning.
I was cheating. I was watching you guys on YouTube. So
He's like, oh shit, I gotta show up now.
So basically, I would agree, yeah, that when it comes to
That's your per diem, son.
the proposed districts and then the proposed setbacks, you have to make sure that there's some viable location.
Yeah,
The one thing I will say, though, about this, and I've done good experience with this, and I've even been able to testify in court on this kind of situation, that while that is appropriate and you can't effectively zone out a particular location, you don't necessarily need to have a specific parcel identified that's existing currently, because there's the vagaries of the real estate market. Someone could buy a larger lot, create a separate setback, or create a separate land division, or they could put in a site condo, or they could do that, and then within it, create that parcel with the parcel lines or lot lines that are separate and meet the setback requirements. Now, having said that, it probably would be best, because you're right, the existing parcels are so small. By the time you do 500 on both sides, the building envelope of a proposed lot might be not consistent with the zoning standards. And so then that, in effect, would zone it out. So what we could do is we could do an analysis using GIS setbacks and that sort of thing to find out where it is and see what numbers could work. Because then you just play with that number. Maybe you change it to 400, 200, 100, 150, something like that.
But
So we
even
could
by
do-
having the way we defined it was the caregiver parcel adjacent to residential parcel is almost, even if we put that at 1 foot, it almost puts us in the same position.
Except like I said,
Where they'd have to get multiple parcels rezoned or split parcels.
right, but to me, the basing your determination only on the current lot configuration
Yeah.
isn't necessarily a requirement. Because someone could buy a large lot and then split that lot or create a site condo, and then within that condo or plat, have a lot that would be viable for that. That's something that's been a defensible argument that we've done for other policies, because it's a consistent policy that a lot of communities use for their adult businesses. So,
I'm wondering if we kind of regroup and think about the intent of this,
Right.
which is we don't want these facilities growing the marijuana next to residences. So what if we said the caregiver facility, and maybe that
Right.
needs to be defined as whatever, and so they could buy a 10-acre parcel, make it a B1, B2, M2, whatever, or buy one, there's some out there, maybe he wants to sell his warehouse land or something, and then they have enough buffer within their land.
right,
But right now, it's the edge of the parcel,
yeah, so yeah,
so we would still meet the
Yeah.
protection of the township, our intent.
yeah, so that's the other way around. If we wanted to modify that text to change that, and also, you also mentioned as residentially zoned property, maybe it's an actual residence.
Well, on that one though,
too.
because like you said, we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. What if there is a residential parcel next to a caregiver operation? They build right up to their minimum setbacks. Someone hasn't built a house on their land yet, but now they wanna build a house,
That is an issue that
So
sometimes when you
I'd
go
rather
with
give
that.
the residential parcel their opportunity to build a
Okay.
my thought, but.
Yeah, no, I see.
And then if we had the setbacks from the caregiver operation, I don't know how to exactly define all that, but, so they would have to have a huge buffer on their parcel. Make them have to get a large parcel and create the buffer on their parcel.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
So what number are you thinking of lowering it to?
I think we still keep it at 500. If that was our intent, we want, and I think this kind of came from a maybe there was an application and there was say a bus stop, right, where kids are, I think there's other school things on that same topic, but we don't want it by where there's residences. That was the whole intent of even getting back into this, because we don't want this in residential areas or really near it. So having them have that buffer on their parcel.
So I've been assuming that these are indoor grow operations. Are they outdoor grow operations?
I
Well,
believe,
go ahead on the law, because I think the law allows it to be outside too.
Yeah, basically
We can't
the-
say it has to be inside.
yeah, unfortunately, we can't. Now, the recent case law does say that as long as it's in a secured
Yeah.
location that's
We
lockable,
can't control it.
that's the only thing that can be. So it could be an outdoor location.
But you can control the smell and smell.
Oh, yeah,
And outdoor is
Well,
extremely pungent. So
maybe 500 is not enough. I was just saying, that's a number we already talked about before. Maybe we just keep it the same, or we can change it.
500's a lot.
Too much?
I don't know if it's too much or not. I'm just thinking, my lot's 50 foot wide and
I know, but
Fine.
okay, if your lot's 50 foot wide, do you even want, 500 feet, say that's 10 houses down or whatever, to 50 foot lots? Do you want them having a operation, that,
500 is not a lot for an outdoor. 500 is very little for an outdoor.
but we're not using this 500 strictly to control odor. We're
Right.
gonna control odor other ways.
Yeah. And remember, as a caregiver grow, the maximum, well, I guess that's also not a small number, but the maximum number of plants they could have on site would be 72.
Okay.
That's not small, but it's
No,
not,
it
it's not like a Class A micro business. As a caregiver grow, the maximum number of plants they'll have on any piece of property would be 72.
Allegedly.
Yeah, who's
To
counting?
be in compliance with standards, yes.
So I guess I'd be curious to know if, not that I want to reduce the number, but if we did reduce the number a little bit, using GIS or whatever, if we could expand the potential areas where it could fit in the township, kind of mitigate some of the risk, but still have a significant buffer. Because, to kind of back up a little bit, my two biggest concerns were the search and seizure, which I thought you guys addressed fantastically, and this particular issue.
On YouTube.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you propose instead?
My fear is if somebody comes in and, tries to get a determination that this is exclusionary, if we could, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, right? I wish I could use GIS like you're using it right now,
Oh,
but,
this is just Google Earth, but,
yeah.
yeah, like, just for example, one of our largest parcels for this, that's currently zoned for this, M1, M2, or B2, would be, could be where the current factory is, or just looking at the future land use, the adjacent parcel, which we had already talked about, a potential rezoning for a warehouse. So that's a fairly large parcel. I think they could accommodate a 500-foot buffer and still have a buildable caregiver operation.
Yeah, if it's viable.
Because they have a buffer with a larger parcel and there's already adjacent
Right.
M2, and that's not residential zoning, and I don't, I think that could be defensible, even if it's just one parcel.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense, that instead of being outward, it is inward. It's to the facility, and there are any associated improvements or structures or enclosures shall be a minimum of 500 feet from their property line.
We good with 500? From the caregiver operation, you're gonna have to define that.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the operation? Is that the stem of the plant, or is that the building, or is that the, whatever? Maybe
Right. We have to find the text to work.
Yeah.
But but I like that. That's a good idea.
You would have it from I forget the exact statutory language, like the enclosed,
Right.
like that could be the measurement.
Yeah.
And I think, Ross, we got, okay, if Mario has to have a question to Foster Swift, he can run a legal counsel question by them.
Oh, okay.
We contracted for both, so.
And then if he makes a change at some point, and
Run it by them.
we could, just for example, say we had a recommended approval today, and not that we're gonna, I'm just saying, at some point, and he made a change, then it would just come back to subcommittee for approval based on
So.
conditions, or we're probably just gonna
If
bring
we're
this back.
revising this.
Yeah, bring it back.
I'll need to double check to see, do we need to hold another public hearing? I believe that we do.
Okay.
So
So either way, we're bringing it back.
Yeah.
But, okay. And we can get into that after we go through all these.
So I've got a question, and again, I'm late to the party on this one.
No, it's understandable.
But back in roughly June of last year, the Fenton Village players had petitioned Fenton Township for a permanent Class C liquor license. And while there have been some initial approvals, they were within a specific distance from a daycare. And that resulted in them being denied, as far as I know. Do we have language that would address that type
Yeah.
of situation in here?
I believe so. It talks about schools and stuff, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the next step, that's like 3 is residential stuff, that 4 is school and childcare. And it talks about 500 feet from the nearest lot line of any childcare center, daycare facility, preschool, private and intermediate secondary school or like facility. And so, and that's making the those property line boundaries of the lot upon which the particular operation is situated. So you could leave that as is, or if you're gonna have similar concerns with being, not able to locate anywhere because of the 500-foot setback, you could always adjust that to be 500 feet based on the actual enclosed facility, like you, sounds like you might be doing for residential.
I think that one's fine to have from the parcel still, because, you know, they still could find a parcel that could be zoned B2, M1 or M2, that has a setback buffer within their parcel and is not by a daycare church or whatever. It could be possible. I think the one I brought up, I don't know, Bill, you might know more, but there's not one of those facilities near this.
No, and then the 500 feet for alcohol, it's 1,000 feet from the church.
Oh, well, we're changing this. We could change it. We can go higher if we want.
Didn't know that.
But typically, the Liquor Control Commission measures theirs differently. They measure theirs along public
road?
routes, the roads.
But still, I mean, I think that it would still allow an option. It would still be, it could be possible with that.
So if we follow the Liquor Control Commission's guidelines for medical marijuana, would that give us more support to say, yeah,
Distance.
what we match their requirements, we can always fall back on something that's already been approved as using it as a guideline?
Well, the only thing is, in my experience, when you use the buy around the right-of-way situation, because they measure it door to door, like if you could have an adjacent parcel, but the road to get to that adjacent parcel from the north and south side is like all the way around, and then you're right adjacent to it. So that's why typically I write it this way, where it talks about the parcel line, from the edge of one parcel line to the edge of another parcel line to get that distance. But the number itself could be changed if you like, but I think then we might start getting into that issue of, well, no, I guess if we change then the other aspect of it to be 500 feet of the enclosure from their own property line, then actually we might avoid that.
What do we want to do?
I would say let's do the 500 feet if that seems to make the most sense.
Because in fact, remember, if we have both standards, you'd have the operator picking a parcel that has a 500-foot location where the plants are 500 feet away from the property line.
Yeah,
and then on top of that, then there's another 500 feet from their property line to a daycare or a childcare. So in effect, you're creating a 1,000-foot buffer between.
I think we still have a pretty good enough buffer, and it's still possible for them to find an area.
Okay.
What do other townships do?
They probably don't even. They probably allow it in residential. I don't know what they do.
I'd just be curious.
I think there's good reason to have different requirements for those two different scenarios too, so I like it. I think it
Because
makes sense.
the frequency of residences in the township is high, the frequency of childcare facilities is low.
Everyone agree to keep it as is and the daycare
Yep.
school? All right. What were the other ones, I guess either Zach, Mallory, or anyone that we need to decide on?
One thing that, we would probably wanna do more research into as a closed session legal opinion, just to flag for you guys, is I think it's, you have to present your, like your registration. That registration is confidential, and so we wanna be careful, about how this is written, but that's something we would be more comfortable doing in a closed, legal session opinion.
Makes sense to me. We can take a look at it and figure out if we need to change it or not, so.
Everyone on board? Sounds good to me. So with that, is that something we need to schedule, Ross, or?
Well, it would be at a meeting and then we would go in a closed session
Okay.
to discuss. So depending on when you can have that information, we could, coordinate it to be on the next agenda or the.
Yeah, that's probably doable. I assume it's like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Well, I was thinking, what if we gathered all our comments here, did as much as we can in this open session, and then if we had enough decisions to schedule a public hearing, and we do a closed session, same as the public hearing and closed session, or is
Is it
it?
on the same date?
Well, I don't know, I'm just throwing it up there.
You might want to discuss the
Get the closed session
issue.
done first, and then schedule the
Yeah,
public
and then so
hearing.
that you can get the text to
Okay.
the right
The only
way.
reason I'm bringing it up, because we're gonna go back to Zach as the ex officio, we got 1 month on the moratorium.
I think we've made enough progress, though. I think we can extend the moratorium a little bit, and I'm happy to take that to the board at the next meeting.
And I will say, you don't have to have a second public hearing. So if you've already had a public hearing on this and then it went to county planning commission, the township board can make changes. So if it's something that you want to hold another public hearing because you're going to propose somewhat significant changes, then by all means, like, you're more than welcome to do that. It's just not required under the
Okay.
Zoning Enabling Act. But I know this is always a sensitive topic, so more public input's usually better than less.
Zach, what is your thought regarding the schedule, board ideas? And keep in mind, the board can always hold a public hearing as well if they want.
Right.
So,
I would have there be a gap between our closed session meeting, and not a long gap, I mean, 1 meeting would be fine, between our closed session and whoever is approving it, the public hearing or a board hearing. I would have a gap in there in case we need to make changes. In terms of whether we need to have another public hearing, I don't know. I guess I don't feel strongly that we necessarily need to have another public
I thought we needed to. I don't feel we need to. I feel like we're making very small changes that we are, and we're just, within this meeting, we've justified these small changes. Really,
Nothing's
very
really
small.
major here.
It's very small.
Fine tuning.
What's that?
All it is fine tuning.
Fine tuning.
It's
I agree.
already there.
I thought it was required, so thanks for clarifying that. Okay. All right, so any more of these to discuss? What about the enclosed lock facilities? A note to caution they gave us. They gave us a note to caution. We better look at that one.
I don't know, you use the exact same languages in the state still at you, so I don't know what, sometimes I feel.
I think they.
I honestly wasn't worried. I thought our regulation was fine.
All this.
Well, the one that, really the only one I thought was, our buffer really made it very tough.
Yeah.
Mario kind of had an argument how it could be possible, but I think by changing it from the parcel to the operation, solved that.
It solves it.
So we're good on the enclosed lock facilities. I mean, we say new material, right, or something?
Yeah.
Do you think that one is fine? That was, section G, G.2.
Yeah, let me,
I'll just read it. Allowing outdoor grows in industrial commercial zones. Outdoor caregiver grows are already extremely restricted. Requiring fencing, visibility, shielding is allowed, but the question is, why would outdoor growing be banned in residential but allowed in B2? This looks externally inconsistent. Okay, well, that one we already said.
Yeah, I don't think we were
The case law was
banning
different.
outdoor.
But I'm just go, that second part of that, the note to caution. Municipalities cannot impose more restrictions than MMMA. Some of the fencing material requirements, new material may overstep. So we don't agree with that.
I'm not concerned.
Okay, but we'll keep that as is if everyone's fine.
I think that their next concern was section J.
J.
Yeah.
The chemical list. Different land uses, like, always are gonna be using different chemicals that it makes sense for the township to be concerned about. I think, that's something that comes up in like the solar and wind and what's being put into the ground, so, we're also not concerned with this.
Sounds good? Everyone good with that? Okay,
Still good on a bond?
yeah, I don't think that was in the regulatory ordinance, right?
Yeah.
And that, the county didn't review that. And since the county didn't review it, I don't believe the board officially reviewed it together. They were provided it, so hopefully, they did. Odor. The township may want to re-examine this section, does not set a unique standard stricter than industrial or agricultural odors. Like similar to that.
It's a special
Chemicals.
land use, it's gonna have
Okay.
special regulations.
So we're good there. Security, we went over. Sorry, inspections.
Yep.
Zach watched the YouTube, but we talked about making small changes there. You heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we addressed that well with those changes.
Terrible case law. That's the one we're gonna, this section M is where we're gonna talk about, is closed session?
We can add that.
What I thought that was like the Lara verification.
Oh, is that in this section too?
Yeah.
Yeah, CRA law verification.
Is there anything else in open session we want to discuss in this section?
Oh, so they talk about just requiring a site plan at all as being, risky. I mean, zoning is almost always going to require a site plan, so, site plan review shouldn't be an issue there. But we can talk about the registration, that could be something in closed session.
Okay, no further comments on section M? I think that's it, isn't it?
I think so. So then they just
The
summarize.
last is the summary. We probably could have started with the summary, but. All right, Mario, do you have enough information to make some changes?
Yes.
And then what we're gonna do is bring this back, once he makes the changes, we're gonna bring it back to a regular meeting. And in that meeting, we're gonna have closed session as well?
Assuming that we have both documents available, yeah.
Both documents, so Ross is gonna schedule the updated documents, special counsel availability, and we'll work on getting an agenda.
Next meeting, we figure out exactly what date that is. Well, I can communicate with you tomorrow, and we can work on when it's feasible to have those documents available, and we'll schedule it as necessary.
Should be pretty quick. Should be pretty quick.
Yeah, I
All right, any further discussion for Michigan medical marijuana regulations? Hearing none, we'll move to call to the public.
I have a question, actually.
Now's the time.
Would you mind going back to the overlay, because I was gonna, data centers overlay? I was just gonna ask you something about this.
Well, we don't have one, but you're talking our potential overlay.
Yes, yes, yes.
It takes a second, we got a delay here. There we go.
Okay. So this is the overlay, so this is a Hogan Road? Right
So,
here,
wait,
houses are here,
look.
so this is an overlay for a data center?
No. So I just pulled up this map. This is our.
This is the solar one.
This is our zoning map, which shows the current zoning for the whole township. It also shows the overlay that we have for solar. I was just pulling it up because it's like an example of an overlay. So we have not sketched out a potential overlay for data centers yet.
Well, the question is actually, because I live there and there's a bunch of farmers farming recently, for years actually, but I drove by and then they see that they were farming there, getting ready to spring. Is it possible if somebody comes and there's gonna be a hostile takeover of this land, if he's not selling it? He said, no, I'm not selling it.
No.
No, they
definitely
don't sell it.
So the farmer said, basically, I'm not selling it, so you cannot.
Yep.
Correct.
But now, just keep in mind that a lot of the farmers in these areas don't own the land, is my understanding.
A lot of them are leases.
A lot of them are leases. I don't know.
Next to me it is.
I don't know which.
Personally, right?
Yep. Yep, if you know it personally and a farmer owns the land, they can sell it, they can not sell it. That's up to them. None of these uses that we've talked about can force them to take the land.
Right.
Through eminent domain.
Because I saw something on Ohio, the farmer said, no, you can give me millions, I'm not selling it, and that was on TV.
Yeah, that was an eminent domain. I think I've watched the same thing.
Right, so
Yeah.
I was thinking, is it possible, and how township's gonna be involved in it if something happened like this? How we have anything? I mean, the farmer's not selling it,
Well, I think the only thing that the potential developer can do to not quite force is just keep raising that price until they can't turn it down.
The property owner would definitely have to sell it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Farmers don't want to. I wish that the money goes to our farmers and they can, grow food. They probably all agree with that, instead of putting all this solar panels. You agree with that? But unfortunately, because it's not profitable farming this.
And a lot of farmers are retiring.
Right, that's the problem.
Kids don't want to farm
And the
anymore
kids don't
because
wanna
it's not
farm.
profitable. They don't sell it.
I know, I'd love to.
They don't sell it, yes, me
Put it
too.
up.
Yeah.
If I have
Kids
money,
all
if I
cash
will
in.
buy a land,
Yeah.
and he said, don't touch it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be corn, soybean, whatever, because it's food we're growing and I would rather see some kind of gardens community gardens for kids to learn how to grow vegetables or trees. It's just community, but
Let me
what
give.
do we have to do?
Let me kind of give you, because my dad's a farmer, right? So, I mean, I completely understand. We have a bunch of land just way up north.
Right.
And one of the, when I was talking to my dad about this, he said a lot of these farmers are retiring. He said, and as a farmer, you go and you invest in your land because they're not making any more land anytime soon. And when you work at GM, you have you have a 401k, you have a pension.
This
you have,
land.
and a farmer has land.
Yep.
And who are your neighbors and everyone else who live around that land? Who are they to tell you that you can't retire? Who are they to tell you that you can't go and put in your own solar farm and put in your own data center and put in your own? He says, retiring. He says, and we have to make money. In other words, we can't survive.
We're moving to Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but they,
And so
yeah,
it just, you know, it just makes, my heart goes out to people like that.
We support farmers.
But- and that's-
more than all this.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I go back, right? I love to support farmers as much as I could, as much as I can. I still
Profitable.
yeah, but it's not profitable. It's sad. It really is, the environment that we've put on them. So that's my little
but
2
that's
cents.
their, yeah,
Sorry,
that's,
guys.
that's their 401K.
Yeah, it is. It's their 401K. We're telling them they can't cash it out,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, and Alina, thank you for sticking around.
Thank you so much.
It's always
Everything.
Do we need a motion to?
Yeah, well, we're gonna go through miscellaneous business.
I've got nothing.
Anyone, any other miscellaneous business? Were you asking for a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take one.
I will support that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I do,
Aye.
that's it.
Meeting adjourned.
Except Zach. Zach has to stay another hour. Yeah.
This guy?
No, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15 minutes. Oh, man.
Tyler, thank you for sticking around.
in Detroit. So I had to be here for that. I couldn't get out of that. But the beauty of it was, I mean,
That's not the bottom.
I think so too.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
Scott told me to tell you to the hospital right now. So I don't know what for.
Well, I'm about to say, I know you guys you have your own ordinance, and I know it's pretty good, because we kind of use it. Because, right, but no, it's,
Yeah, I think so.
it's very helpful.
Something about like, where's everyone? I said, we have a planning commission, dude, like, I gotta pay attention. And he's like, he goes, anyone there that I know, I'm like, oh, it's here.
Trying to be consistent, zoning, focus on zoning, whenever we bring up.
So anyways,
that's why
cheers.
My idea is a whole regular.
Hopefully that's good information, what you got there. I know you lived around the area, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give her this.
This guy makes instead of like really nasty stuff.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff, it's nice stuff.
Yeah, and so that's the thing,
Manufactured to the
they already had some other ordinance on the books with other things.
Yeah.
So that's why
So we're gonna build a house, maybe, you don't know yet.
I have no idea. This is brand new to me. So, yeah.
People kind of worried that so you can approach him and say, hey, can you, since you have land, can you?
I think he wants to keep it. He sounded really convincing to keep it, and I like that. Because he lives here in the township. So I hate to say that I trust everybody, because I don't, but he seemed very trustworthy. Like, that's just, I mean, anyone who's already lived here since 1970, it's good by me. I like that. Yeah. I just want people to invest in their own township, you know what I mean? Like, I like that.
And reasonable, so we can have a,
Yes, but stay within the master plan too. That's another big thing. No problem. Thank you for being here.
Is that what it is? That's the general structure. Oh, I still need to double check.